Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Luffy saved boa Hancock and married her? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Invader Cole for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. On an island in the Grand Line, a looming darkness awaits. A giant tower lives a man with no good intentions in the world. Sitting down on his throne like the true king he was. Jekyll Hor is the leader and founder of Grips Island. Watching over his kingdom, nothing got on this island without him knowing. Which is exactly how he knew one of his followers just came in. He lightened up to get a better look at his king. Horus was wearing glasses and a white collared shirt and black pants. His hair is hazelnut colored. Tell me what you want, to ask Horus. The man looked at his king before speaking. He had calmed himself down before speaking. He also made sure not to show any type of fear. My king, we did it. Me and the rest of the expedition team have found a way for you to become a warlord. It was simple but not easy, but… Horus put his hand in front of him to signal the man to stop speaking. Tell me, does anyone else have this information besides you? Well, of course the entire expedition team knows, the man answered. That's good, said Horus. The entire area went heavy. He found himself on the floor without the ability to get up. Horus, his king, walked up to him, placing his hand on his head. No, my king, please, cried the man. Sorry, I wish I didn't have to, but you forgot one thing. You looked at me when you spoke. You showed no fear, you even managed to calm yourself down, but you forgot one thing. Always bow down to me when you speak, stated Horus. I'm sorry. But it was too late, and he soon found his entire mind eradicated. Horus looked over to one of the guards. You are now the leader of the expedition team. Go get me my information. Yes sir, the former guard ran out the room. While Horus went back to his throne. It is so hard to find good help these days. In the east, on an island called Goa Kingdom, is a place called Windmill Village. A young boy no more than 17 is leaving on his adventure to become a pirate. He was in his dinghy with a green-haired woman. She seemed puzzled while the boy had a monkey grin on his face. It seemed like a great day to be outside or even become a pirate. Luffy, what am I doing in this thing, asked Makino. Because Makino, I want you to join me. I know you have been very lonely since Shanks left, answered Luffy. That's not true, Luffy, I had you and Ace to keep me company, said Makino. Yeah, but when I leave you will be lonely, so that's why I want you to come with me. We can both meet Shanks again together. Makino smiled. She knew sometime Shanks would come back here on his own, but she did not want to tell Luffy that. Then she thought about the promise she made to his mother. Don't worry, I will protect him though, Makino. Okay Luffy, I will join you, said Makino. Alright, cheered Luffy. They both then sailed their way to a new world of adventures. They sailed in their very small excuse for a boat all day. Luffy talked about how he wanted at least 9 crew members before entering the Grand Line. When nightfall reached, hell broke loose. Ahead of them was a giant whirlpool. Makino panicked, not knowing what to do. Luffy seemed okay and came up with an idea. Makino gets in the barrel and says Luffy is already in the barrel. Makino didn't seem to argue and hopped in next to Luffy. They closed the lid hoping for the best. Makino hugged Luffy inside to give him comfort. Even if she was the one that needed it. The next day, on an island nearby, their barrel landed. Both of them were asleep so they couldn't notice. A pink-haired boy came over and noticed the barrel. He tried to pick it up but found it was too heavy. He assumed it was a barrel of liquor. He took it into a nearby house without being noticed, that's what he thought anyway. 3 pirates came by and confronted Kobe. So Kobe, slacking off again, asked one of the pirates. No, I just thought you guys would enjoy a nice barrel of wine, answered Kobe. The pirates then drooled over the thought of some nice wine. Every time they got some, their captain Alvida would drink all of it, never leaving them a drop. They took the barrel and tried to open it. Instead, 2 of the pirates that tried to open it had a fist hit to their face. That was a good nap, shouted Luffy coming out the barrel. Makino came out after him, not looking happy. Luffy, you shouldn't do that, who knows who you could have hurt doing that, she scolded him. She looked down at the 2 knocked out pirates. See, what did I tell you? Sorry Makino, I never meant to hurt anyone, said Luffy. As long as you're sorry. Makino then looked at Kobe, who she noticed was very frightened. She walked over to try and comfort him. Are you okay? Why are you crying, she asked. I'm not crying, said Kobe. Makino still knew he was scared. She noticed he could be around Luffy's age. So she called him over. Luffy, come talk to this boy. Hey, I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the future pirate king, Luffy introduced himself. Kobe's mind changed from scared to amazed. He had never heard anyone, not even Alvida, say that. But Alvida is a woman, but you could easily mistake her for a man. My name is Kobe, and did you say you want to be pirate king? Yep, that is my dream, and if I die fighting for it, that's fine with me, said Luffy. Hey Luffy, do you think I can be a marine? I don't know, that's up to you. Makino decided to jump in, and Kobe was now feeling comfortable around them. So Kobe, why do you want to be a marine? Kobe smiled at her, even showing a little blush. I want to be a marine because of Alvida. She makes me sick to my very stomach, so I have to catch pirates like her. Who's Alvida? Asked Luffy. Speaking of the devil, the roof of the house was knocked down by an iron club. A giant fat lady appeared to be the culprit. She was Alvida. Holy shit, it's the moon, shouted Luffy, only to earn a smack in the back of the head by Makino. Who did you say you were going to capture? Kobe asked Alvida in anger. Alvida motioned, then turned to Makino. Who the hell is she? Kobe looked more scared than before. He didn't know what to say. He then looked at Luffy and thought about being brave. Alvida opened her big mouth again. Kobe, I can forgive you if you tell me who the most beautiful woman in the sea is, she said. Not you. You fat old cow. In fact, Makino is more beautiful than what you will ever be, shouted by Kobe. Alvida's eyes filled with rage, and she brought her club down ready to crush Kobe. If I die fighting for my dream, then that's okay, Kobe thought before the club came down on him. Still waiting, wondering when she was going to do it, Kobe opened his eyes and was surprised to see Luffy holding back the club. Well spoken, Kobe, said Luffy. Luffy then stretched out his arm and reeled it back and sending Alvida flying in the air. Luffy turned back around and noticed Kobe passed out with Makino tending to him. I think his day was too exciting, said Makino. The calm belt is a place in the sea where no wind blows and the seeking nest. Unless you are a marine, then there was no way you could enter and exist safely. In the calm belt is an island known as Amazon Lily. There are a few rules you must follow. But the rule was to never ever bring a man to the island. This was something boa Hancock could not stress enough. Hancock sat in her throne room alone. Her sisters had other business to attend to, leaving her by herself completely vulnerable for an attack. I know you're there, so come out, said Hancock. Ada then went around the room until it took a human form, who was Horace. A man, what do you want? Your presence is forbidden on this island, said Hancock. Don't be so hasty, Hancock. You should show more respect to the king of Grip's kingdom, said Horace. Hancock then stood up from her chair and glared at Horace as she was ready to kill him. But he only had more to say. Now listen, Hancock, I know your dirty little secret. A former slave of the Holy Land. But how did you know? It was easy for a man with my power to easily convince an invisible man to do my dirty work. Now I give you two choices. 1, step down from being a warlord. 2, die and have your entire island massacred. Hancock then disappeared from sight. She reappeared next to Horace with a hardened black fist. Horace was able to block with a simple date shield. Hancock then let out an invisible wave of power. This seemed to weaken Horace a bit as he let down his shield. Hancock took this chance and kicked him to a wall. She then grabbed him by the shirt and tossed him up a wall. He fell down, hitting the heart, then felt something goosing from his nose. It was blood. You made me bleed. Horace's glasses then shattered them to pieces. You made me bleed. Horace then put his hands on the floor. Letting out his power, green data started to go from the floor to the walls of the palace. Everything was disappearing into nothingness. You made me bleed. In a flash, the entire palace was gone. Nothing remained except for the land under it. Unless you count the no longer insane Horace. Did I do all of this? Wow. I didn't mean for it to go like this. Now I don't know if she is dead or not. Horace then noticed a big crowd of Amazons coming his way. He decided to leave the scene. In the East Blue. Luffy had done it with the help of Makino and Kobe. He got his first crew member, Roronoa Zoro. He had to do the unthinkable and take on an entire marine base. But mostly just Captain Morgan. They had already left, leaving Kobe to be a marine like he wanted. So now they are currently on their way to wait where they are going to. How do you expect to be king of the pirates if you can't navigate, yelled Zoro. I don't know where the water takes me, answered Luffy. Makino didn't pay attention to the two bickering. She was still currently thinking about her decision to become a pirate. She would never do it otherwise, but as long as she was with Luffy, she would say yeah, why not. She looked off into the distance and saw a woman drowning under the sea. She quickly took action. Luffy's Zoro sailed to that direction and shouted at Makino. Why? Just do it. She yelled with shark teeth. Yes ma'am, okay, Makino, Zoro and Luffy said. They pulled all the way to the woman. Zoro was the one to dive in and save her. After a while he came back up and dumped her on the boat. When she didn't wake up, it was Makino who performed CPR. She coughed some water out and woke up a few seconds later. Hey, are you okay? Luffy asked her. But instead of responding, she raised her head and turned back and forth. She was unsure where she was. Makino was the one to comfort her. Hey, it's okay. My name is Makino, tell me yours. My name is boa Hancock, the woman answered. Okay, tell me, how did you get here, Hancock? Hancock bit her lip at the question. She had no idea how to answer it. I don't know, all I can remember is my name, nothing else. On Gecko Island, a certain Tangerine Head had found herself sitting under a tree. She was in a town called Syrup Village. She was taking a rest after escaping Buggy the Clown and his gang of pirates. If it wasn't for her amazing brain of intelligence, she would most likely be dead by now. Just 10 million more berries and I will finally set everyone free. Suddenly she heard a shaking in the bushes. She looked up to see a man with an extremely long nose standing confidently. I am the brave Captain Usopp, a brave pirate of the sea. He declared, I command 8,000 men and they will follow me to hell. Nami could tell the man was lying, but listened to him anyway. We ask you to leave this island. Nami stood up to Usopp face to face. Usopp's stance changed to him being cowardly. You're lying, Nami said. How did you know? Asked Usopp. You just told me. Usopp was now on his knees crying. Please don't kill me, I want to live. But if I must I will die for my village. Later, at a twist of fate, the two are now in a diner together. Half an hour later. They found that they actually got along well together, but Usopp left early, to which he said something. The other Usopp pirates told her it was telling lies to a sick girl named Kaya. Nami had then gathered all the supplies for her trip back to her village, but before leaving, she ran into Usopp again. Hey Usopp, she greeted me. Usopp snapped out his train of thought. Hey Nami. Hancock had really had no idea who she was. After some thought, it was decided that she will join the crew and they would help get her memories back. She had no problem joining them and she had no reason not to join them. Luffy walked up to her holding a fork and a spoon. He had a smile on his face, so Hancock wondered what the man was doing. Luffy, what are you doing? Since you lost your memories, I will teach you what. Luffy explained. This is a fork and this is a spoon, he said, holding them to her. Luffy, I know what a spoon and fork is. See, you are learning already. Captain Buggy Nami escaped, but we know where she went, said a pirate. But now set the sails, the bitch will pay, and she will learn never to steal from Captain Buggy, Buggy exclaimed. The big top then sailed off, heading for Nami's direction. Which was the Gecko Islands. No, leave them alone. What was going on? Hancock had fallen asleep and knew she was having a dream. Why was she screaming? She couldn't move her body or even speak for herself. She saw that she was holding a knife towards a man with a very ugly face. He was holding a gun, but it didn't look like it was towards her. He was pointing it at someone else. Hancock, someone said behind her. The next thing Hancock knew, she was whacked in the head with the gun. She looked at the blood coming down on the ground. She then felt someone grab her from behind. But before anything else, she was shot. What happened? Why did the man shoot her? She couldn't look for answers as her world went black. All she could do was hear the voices. Hancock, are you okay? Don't die on us, sis. Sis. Did she have sisters? Stupid child, how dare you go against me, a noble. Hancock. Wake up. Hancock jumped up from her and came face to face with Luffy. He looked like he was concerned. Hancock, you were having a bad dream? Asked Luffy. Before answering, Hancock noticed that it was still dark out. Zoro, who was supposed to be keeping watch, was asleep. Makino was also sleeping peacefully under the night sky. She then came back to Luffy, who was the first one asleep. He woke her up from a nightmare she did not want to finish. Luffy opened his mouth to speak again to Hancock. Are you okay? You were moving around a lot in your sleep, and she even started to scream a bit. I'm fine, Luffy, thank you for waking me up though, Hancock admitted. She didn't want to worry him too much, so she pretended to go back to sleep. But heaven knows she couldn't, as she kept twitching and opening her eyes over and over. She was not having a good night. Then it rubbed against her. Something brushed up against it, then pressed up closer to her. She turned around to see that it was Luffy. Was he some kind of pervert? No, he was too stupid to be a pervert, but going by that logic he could be too stupid to be a pervert. Luffy, what are you doing? Luffy opened his eyes and gave her a cute monkey smile. I heard this is what you do to help you feel comfortable. I know you don't feel good, so I'm helping you, he admitted. That's what he is doing. He was so innocent at times, and that is what she liked about him. She even had to admit to herself that this was helping her feel better. He smelled good, almost like bananas, and his body was comfortable. Maybe this wasn't a bad night after all, as long as she had Luffy by her side at least. The next morning. Makino was the first to wake up. Her eyes were a little blurry, so she couldn't exactly see all the way. All there was in her vision was a blur of red and purple. She moved her head to see a small blur of green. You're awake. We are getting close to land, it said. She knew it was Zoro, so maybe she wasn't the first one awake. Zoro asked where Luffy was and Hancock asked Makino. Dang, why won't her vision clear up? Over there asleep. Makino by instinct turned her head back to the red and purple blur. Then her vision decided to clear up and what she saw turned her tomatoes red. Luffy and Hancock cuddling. Without warning, she smacked Zoro in the face. What was that for women? He shouted with sharp teeth. How could you let that happen? She shouted back. Zoro looked over at Luffy and Hancock and turned back. Who cares, he is like 17, isn't that normal? Makino then realized Zoro didn't know Luffy that well, yet so she calmed herself down and spoke to Zoro in a more calm manner. Zoro, there is something you should know, Luffy hasn't had the birds and bees talk. Zoro smacked his head at her statement. You can't be serious, aren't you like his mother or something? Well, every time we talked about it he would ask oh like a cat. Then the conversation would end there. Seemingly Zoro and Makino's conversation had also ended there. See what I mean, was her last comment. When they reached land later on, Luffy was the first to take a step on land and Hancock followed close behind him. She was actually becoming attached to the rubber man, so she wanted to stay close to him. The first thing they encountered was a long-nosed man with some kids and a tangerine-haired woman. I am the great Captain Usopp. This island is my territory and I ask you to leave, shouted Usopp. His boldness dropped down when Luffy and Hancock gave him looks of intimidation. Please leave. Usopp was then whacked over the head by Nami. Usopp, how many times do I have to tell you, if you are going to lie you have to stick with it? This time it was Makino who whacked both Nami and Usopp over the head. Lying will not get either of you anywhere in life, she scolded. Just like that, these two groups came together in a similar way as Nami and Usopp. Little did they know they would need each other if they were going to protect the island. For two pirates had evil plans. Buggy the Clown with a mission to destroy the island and take back what was his. Kuru, who had a mission to take a fortune for himself. How will this turn out? Only time will tell. Usopp and Nami treated them to lunch. They all got along fine with each other mostly. Almost enough to have a decent conversation. Hancock kept eyeing Nami from time to time, which was something that didn't go unnoticed by her. Nami looked back at her, leaving her food untouched. That went noticed by Luffy. Is there a problem? Nami asked Hancock. Oh no, it's nothing, like Hancock. She was getting closer to Luffy by the minute and she was becoming protective of him. So any other woman around, except Makino, made her intimidated. Meat, drooled Luffy. He reached over to grab Nami's untouched meat, but he somehow grabbed her instead. Pervert. Nami knocked the boy's lights out. Lucky duck, said Zoro. Makino was the one to smack him behind the head. Don't you start, a woman's body is not a toy. Wanting to avoid even more weirdness, Usopp got up his seat and said he had business. When he left, everyone turned to Nami. What? Well, you're his girlfriend, you should know where he goes, said Luffy. Okay, first off, I am not his girlfriend, second, I haven't known him long enough for that, and finally he is going to tell lies, she explained. She also explained that the lies were not as bad as they all thought because it was to help a friend. Oh, so how long have you known him? Luffy asked. Since yesterday, I am actually leaving today. Hey, do you want to join my crew? Nami's demeanor quickly changed. No way, I hate pirates. I will never be one in my life. Meanwhile at the mansion, Usopp continued his lies towards Kaya. He was cheering her up and giving her hope. He was telling about how he went to the Grand Line and took down 2 giants. You're so funny, Usopp, Kaya laughed. Usopp continued telling his stories, but then noticed Luffy and the rest of the crew along with the kids from earlier came in. Usopp, who are these guys? Asked Kaya. Usopp turned around and noticed everyone behind him. Oh, these guys are my loyal followers. Ignoring what Usopp had just said, Luffy pushed Usopp out the way and confronted Kaya. Hey, I was wondering if you could help us get a ship, he asked. What did he just ask? For a ship? Well, if he was a friend of Usopp then she wouldn't mind. Before anyone else could speak, the door suddenly slammed open. A man with green hair and a butler suit and glasses walked through the door. What's with all the noise? Kuro asked. Oh no, it's the butler, whispered Usopp. You won't get a ship, so just leave, said Kuro. Hancock did not like that remark. Who was he to order Luffy around? He was the captain and he was her captain. Hancock stepped in front of Luffy and took a stand. Seeing this woman here shocked every piece in Kuro's body. The pirate empress, a warlord of the sea, was here of all places. She was not in the plan, but something was wrong. He heard rumors saying that the pirate empress had a hatred for all men. So why was she here next? She rarely ever left her island. So once again, what was she doing here? Who are you to order Luffy around? Asked Hancock. My name is Clahatter and I am the butler, he said. Butler? Hancock laughed at the word. So if you're a butler, then what makes you think you can order anyone around? Your job is to obey, so do your job and obey, she demanded. He was not a man to get scared easily. But when a warlord talked down to him like that, he was easily frightened. He wouldn't dare call her out if she was the real thing. Then there was always the possibility that she was nothing but a common look-alike. That last one seemed like the most reasonable idea. But scratching off all of that, his plan to get the pirates to leave wasn't working, so he would try something else. You're here too, of course the liar would be here. A worthless piece of shit like your father's, Kuro stated. Don't start it, Usopp. He wanted nothing to do with you or your mother. He left you because he cares nothing for you, Kuro continued. You shut your mouth, yelled Usopp. He balled up his fist ready to punch the butler in his face. "Zoro now!" shouted Makino. On cue, Zoro ran up and restrained Usopp before he could punch Kuro. "Usopp didn't start the fight just because he made you angry," Makino advised. "You see, that is what a pirate will do, resort to violence," said Kuro. Nami felt frustrated at how he was bullying her friend. Even if she didn't like pirates, she wasn't going to let someone talk like that to her friend. You know, it's only part of human nature to hurt someone that is bad-mouthing someone you care about. How about I tell you this, your mother is such a hoe that all pirates in all the blues knew her. He then lost it. He jumped up and was about to smack Nami in the face. When he got too close for comfort, it was Hancock and Luffy who jumped in and guarded her. "Don't you dare hurt one of my," said Luffy. Nami smirked. "Like I said, it's human nature." Kuro was still very ticked and only had one thing to say. "I ask you all to leave now. Before things get ugly." "Fine, have it your way," Usopp pouted and left out the door. "Usopp? That was very rude of you," shouted Kaya. "It was only the truth," said Kuro. "So is your mother being a hoe," Nami said before walking out the bedroom. After that, everyone left the mansion. Luffy followed Usopp and Hancock followed Luffy. They followed him all the way to a mountaintop. Usopp sat there in sorrow. When they came to him, they had a talk about Usopp's dad. "You know it's not true, right? Your dad cared about you very much, he never stopped talking about you," said Luffy. "You know my dad? How?" Meanwhile, Nami was with Zoro and Makino at the beach she arrived at. "So you're a navigator," said Zoro. "Yeah, a really good navigator," said Nami. "So why won't you just join us? Luffy does really want you," said Makino. "Thanks, but no thanks. I hate pirates and everything about them," said Nami. Zoro yawned and lay down. "So you're just a petty thief then?" "I'm a thief with a goal, Nami. I need to collect 100 million berries." "Why?" "None of your business." Makino moved her eyes from the bickering two and looked out into the distant sea. It was a little far, but she could tell what it was. "A pirate ship," she shouted. "What?" "A pirate ship," called Zoro, said to get up. Nami looked out into the sea and recognized the pirates. "Buggy," she whispered. "We have to warn everyone," said Makino. "Fine, let's hurry." Zoro and Makino ran off to the village, but Nami stood there still looking at the upcoming ship. "This is my fault, people are going to get hurt because of me." "Nami, let's go." Luffy, Hancock and Usopp had just heard some very shocking news. The butler was in fact not an actual butler. But he was really a pirate thought to have been dead years ago. He planned to kill Kaya and take her fortune. Usopp was stunned by this and he quickly ran towards the village to warn everyone. Hancock knew it. This man was untrustworthy. He was only using this girl for her money, he betrayed her trust. In mid-thought, something hit her mind. She was remembering something again. Flashback. Beat. Hancock looked at what was handed to her. It was a very weird fruit, it was heart-shaped and had pink swirls. Like last time, she didn't know much about what was going on. She could not speak and she had no control over herself. All she knew was that whatever she was doing, she did not want to eat this fruit. She looked at the people who held the fruit. There were 3 of them and they had a wicked grin on their face. She could tell that she wasn't going to eat even if she wanted to. Then it happened, they forced the fruit down her throat. Things started to go black and all she could hear was the wicked laughs of the man before her. End of flashback. "Hancock, are you okay?" Luffy asked. "Yes, Luffy, I'm fine. We should go help Long Nose now," said Hancock. "Boy, let's go." "In town." "The pirates are coming. The pirates are coming," shouted Usopp across the village. But he wasn't the only one going around warning people. Makino walked, knocked on a door and warned a man about upcoming pirates. "Sir, you must know pirates are coming to attack the village. The pirates are coming. The pirates are coming." The man heard Usopp and that was all for him not to believe Makino. He assumed that she was in on his little game. This was the case for everyone else trying to warn the people. When Usopp tried to warn Kaya about Kuro, the only thing he got in return was a shot in the arm by her other butler Mary. Feeling helpless, he went over to a tree and sat down underneath. The Straw Hat Pirates came over and talked to the lone sniper. "You see where your lying got you? Now no one believes you, Makino." "I know. But I won't let it bother me, by tomorrow I will be ready to protect this village. It will be a normal day like always," said Usopp. "I'm sorry to tell you this, Usopp, but you have bigger problems than that," said Zoro. "What do you mean?" "Pirates are already coming to the island and they should be here in 10 minutes flat." This time Nami was the one to speak up. "How do you know, Nami? Do you know them?" asked Luffy. "Yeah, I do. These guys are the buggy pirates and the reason they are there is because of me. I stole from them back in Orange Town and now they must want revenge." Nami's look then changed to sorrow. "I'm sorry, Usopp, I never meant for this to happen." Usopp stood up from his spot and walked up to Nami. "It's okay, Nami. Like I said, I will protect this village." "And we're going to help," said Luffy. "Really you are, but what about Kuro?" Usopp asked. If what you said was true then he shouldn't start his plan until tomorrow, said Makino. But just in case I will watch out for her. Thanks guys, you're the best, stated Usopp. Hey, that's what friends are for, said Luffy. Makino went back to the mansion protecting Kaya. She stayed close to her and always kept her guard up around Kuro. She had even partially figured out an escape plan in case things got bad. The Straw Hats, plus Usopp and Nami, went to the beach where Buggy would arrive. They each were ready for battle. Zoro had two of his swords out, Nami had her staff ready. Usopp had his slingshot out, but he was shaking in fear. Luffy kept twisting his arm, having a bright smile on his face, and Hancock. Well, Hancock wasn't sure if she could fight, she had ever been in a fight. But if she had to, she would fight to the end for Luffy. Fire was what was heard. The next thing they heard was the sound of a cannon being fired. The first person to make it was Zoro, ready to cut the upcoming cannon in half. Then out of nowhere he was pushed out of the way by an unknown force. Boom. Luffy and Zoro raised their heads up. They saw great debris of trees blown to the ground. The next thing they saw was that it was Hancock that had moved everyone out the way. They were at an odd moment to see how she predicted that. Hancock, how did you know that was coming? Asked Luffy. I don't know, if she answered. It was true, it was an odd moment for her. It was as if a voice told her what was going to happen. Here he comes, said a worried Nami. The big top reached land, and soon all crew members of the Buggy Pirate stepped down, even Buggy himself. He was a man of average height, and his attire was that of a clown. He had blue and orange face makeup, a red and white striped shirt and orange boots. The first thing he noticed when he stepped down was Nami. Nami, give me back my map and treasure, shouted Buggy. No way. I stole it fair and square. She shouted back. Then you leave me no choice to kill you and destroy this island. Usopp's scared face shifted to aggression. He was about to stand up to Buggy, but Luffy beat him to the punch. Hey, did you shoot that cannon at my crew? Asked Luffy. Yeah, I did. So what? Asked Buggy. So what? I'm going to kick your ass. Luffy stretched out his leg and motivated it forward. The powerful kick sent most of Buggy's men to the ground. When the attack almost reached Buggy himself, he did the unbelievable. He moved his head in the air. How did you do that? Luffy asked as he retracted his leg. It's his devil fruit. Let's split his body into pieces, answered Nami. I would kill you myself, but I'll let my crew take you on. Moji. Kabaji. On his order, two men stepped out from behind him. One on a unicycle and the other on top of a lion. They rushed on top of the hill ready to kill. Usopp, on instinct, or accident, fired an egg out his slingshot. This, however, did something, because Rish the lion stopped and ate the splattered egg. Usopp, confused about what he just did, quickly changed his study. Yeah, that's what happens when you mess with a great captain, Usopp, he cheered. Bull crap, if you're a pirate captain, then I'm the pirate, Shanks, yelled Buggy. Oh crap, how did he figure it out, said Usopp. You just told him, yelled Nami. It was Zoro's turn to battle. He had two swords in his hands and one in his mouth. The two swordsmen met together, it was steel against steel. Neither side backed down. They then jumped apart at the same time and soon collided swords again. Kabaji gained the upper hand and started moving Zoro back using the power of his unicycle. Zoro, seeing what was happening, then started spinning himself super fast. This caused him to knock back Kabaji's sword and give multiple cuts to both his dot. Before things got too serious, Kabaji pulled back his sword and stopped the slashing swords. The fight nearly came to an end. Kabaji fired fire out his mouth. Zoro countered and ran straight into the flames. Flaming Onigiri Kabaji was ended by a slice of flaming swords. Zoro now behind him has swords. At this moment Kabaji fell to the ground. I must defeat anyone who calls themselves a swordsman. To be the best. With everyone distracted by this, Nami was able to sneak away and get to Buggy's ship. She searched around hoping she did not miss any treasure. She still believed he had more, so she went and checked the captain's quarters. There she found a pink-haired woman tied up in sea stone cuffs. She was unconscious. Nami thought that it was possible she was a prisoner, so she picked up a nearby key and untied the woman. When there was a certain amount of sea stone released, the woman woke up. Are you okay? Asked Nami. I am now thankful that the woman stood up and stretched her body a bit. You got any food? Oh great, not another, Luffy thought Nami. Oh, by the way, my name is Jewelry Bonnie, said the woman. It was Luffy's turn to go against Buggy. He was ready to kick his ass. Gum gum pistol. Luffy shot his arm towards Buggy. But as if he expected it to come, Buggy moved his head to the side. Luffy charged up to him while shooting another attack. Gum gum Gatling. Multiple punches were sent towards Buggy, but like last time, Buggy dodged each one. Buggy decided it was his turn to attack. He fired two of his hands towards the Straw Hat Kid. Luffy saw this coming and jumped up in the air to dodge. He jumped only to be knocked back down by Buggy's fist. Luffy! Screamed Hancock. How did he know I was going to jump, thought Luffy. Hancock wouldn't have it, she wouldn't let this man beat her. Luffy, well, she stood by and did nothing. She was about to walk up and fight the man himself, but then it happened. My hat. She heard Luffy yell. She turned around and saw Luffy's hat was torn and on the ground. She also saw that the culprit was one of Buggy's hands with daggers in them. That when she had enough, that hat meant the world to Luffy. She walked up and charged at Buggy, the only thing standing in her way was his crew. You're not going anywhere, Toot said one of them. Hancock kept running through, but she soon found herself surrounded by a group of men. Then something happened, she released an invisible force and sent the pirates to the ground unconscious. This went noticed by everyone who was still awake. Who is this woman, thought Zoro. That power is scary though, Usopp. Buggy was speechless. This woman had the third form unlike him. He only possessed observation, but it was likely she was stronger. But he could tell one thing, this woman had no idea how she did it. So she most likely didn't even know what was. A mad grin popped on his face, believing he could still win the fight. It was cut short when the woman knocked him forward in his own ship. She packed a punch, he got back up ready to restart the fight. Hancock was somewhat confident she could at least help. There was a voice in her head telling her things with this power she could most likely get the advantage. Hancock didn't fight him, yelled Luffy from behind. Buggy's eyes then turned more wide as they thought he knew he saw this woman somewhere before. One of the 7 warlords of the sea, but what was she doing here? If she was aligned with this straw boy, he could not fight or hope to beat her. Even with there still being some doubt in his mind, he ordered his crew to fall back. The remaining of the crew that wasn't passed out picked up the ones that were unconscious. When they all began to run back on the big top, an unknown force sent them back down, falling. It was revealed to be Nami and Bonnie. Make me a slave, A raged Bonnie grabbed Buggy and transformed him into a kid. Hey, change me back, bitch, said the little Buggy. Luffy saw this window of opportunity and sent Buggy flying with a gum pistol. At a later time, Buggy's crew left the island and everyone took a rest from the battle. Thanks guys, but there is still the problem of Kuru to deal with, said Usopp. Alright, I'll have to kick his ass. So Luffy stood up and started walking back to the village. Everyone followed him except for Zoro and Nami. So Bonnie, are you coming with us, asked Nami. You mean join this pirate crew? Before Nami could protest that she was not a pirate, Bonnie spoke to before her. I don't know how strong is the captain. Is stronger than what you might think for a kid like him, said Zoro. Interested, Bonnie scratched her chin. I'll think about it. So if what you tell me is true, then Kuru can't be trusted, said Kaya. Yes, Luffy and Usopp heard him say that they are planning on attacking the village tomorrow, said Makino. Crash. Makino and Kaya heard a crash coming from downstairs. Things were quiet for a while until they heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Makino took the defensive and held a hunting knife in her hand. When the door opened, she charged towards them ready to stab. Hey. Makino, what are you doing? Yelled Luffy, grabbing the knife by the mouth. Luffy, it's just you, but what happened to the butler? Asked Makino. Me and Usopp kicked his ass, Luffy, then bit the hunting in half. Oh, and we got a new member, meet Bonnie. The pink-haired woman stepped from behind the door. She got a quick clothes change because of her other clothes being ripped. It wasn't her style, but she was in the clothes of one of the female maids. But there was something she wanted after being stuck as a prisoner of Buggy for so long. Luffy, I need food. If I'm going to join you, then you are going to have to keep feeding me, said Bonnie. Yeah, I can eat too, let's go get Zoro. Luffy looked around the room for Zoro, who was the only one not there. It was Nami who looked out the window, and there was Zoro looking around as if he was lost. Bonnie and Luffy went outside to get him, but as luck would have, a marine officer was around. Makino and Kaya called them before the big bash with Buggy. Unfortunately, they also knew she was in the area because they walked around holding a picture of her. When they came her way, she had to think fast. In Zoro's eyes, it just happened. A little kid with pink hair tackled him and said brother. It was weird at the moment, but he noticed after the marine left the girl changed to Bonnie. Hey, you weren't a brat at all, said Zoro. Of course I wasn't, you idiot. Fine, whatever, can you get off me? Bonnie then noticed she still laid on top of Zoro. She was slightly embarrassed, hoping no one other than Luffy could see them. Before she stood up, she whispered, don't mention this to anyone. Whatever. Zoro. Bonnie. You are ready to go to lunch, shouted Luffy. Why does he have to be so loud all the time, complained Zoro. Don't say what I was thinking, shouted Bonnie at him. Usopp, thank you for saving me, said Kaya. You're welcome, I just didn't want to see you get hurt, Usopp said. The liar and sick girl looked out into the sunset. It was the first time Kaya was outside since she became ill, and Usopp wanted to make it special. She heard this is what Usopp did at the end of the day. Always gaze into the ocean at sunset. No wonder he did it, it was so beautiful. But the real buster point of the night was when Usopp told her he was leaving to become a pirate. Tears watered down her eyes and she couldn't stop. Kaya didn't cry, come with me, Kaya then stopped. Usopp said come with her and that's what she wanted. Of course Usopp, I will come with you. Usopp hugged her and rubbed her back. Guess they won't be separated after all. During all this no one could ever think all hell was going down somewhere else. Amazon Lily boa Hancock's Lost Kingdom lost their guide. The Boa sisters tried everything they possibly could to put everyone in order, even if it had to go to violence. Things started to get better, but sooner or later they will get worse. Soon the Marines will find out that Hancock isn't present at the time, and when they did it meant a buster call for everyone. Boa Sandarosa had already come up with a solution to this. We will give Salome to a few Amazons, and they will search for Hancock, said Sandarosa. Are you sure that is a good idea, to send Amazons who know nothing about the outside world to debate Marigold? We have no choice at the moment, so it has to be done, added Elder Naya. If you don't mind, I have a few candidates. Their names are Marguerite, Alphalandra, and Sweet Pea. Those three will be just fine and find Hancock in no time. The two Boa sisters agreed and motivated the plan. The Straw Hats left Gecko Island with 3 new crew members and a temporary ally. Usopp joined the crew on Luffy's request. He was a skilled sniper, which was something they needed. Kaya would go wherever Usopp went, so she would naturally join the Straw Hats. She was an unofficial nurse, so it would be good to have someone with some medical experience. Bonnie joined them for reasons unknown. All she said was she had to lay low for a while. Nami claimed that she was nothing but an ally and would not become a pirate. The Going Merry rocked itself back and forth. Everyone around did their own little thing. Usopp practiced his sniping skills, and he remembered how strong Buggy was and how he could predict moves. If Luffy and everyone else hadn't been there, he would really be dead. Makino read a book in the galley, which was the only place to get some silence. Zoro slept his day away. Nami was learning more on how the ship operated. It was really Bonnie teaching Nami, because Bonnie was a Hell's woman. Hancock was with Kaya. The latter told her that she knew how to make a medicine that could help with her amnesia. Are you sure it will work? Asked Hancock. Kaya didn't answer, she only kept looking through a book of medicines. She turned to the older woman behind her. Yes, but the problem is nobody actually knows how amnesia works. So the medicine can only help, not fully recover. Hancock smiled at the blonde nurse. I will take what I can get. I would love to know who I was before. Hancock thought about the life she had. In recent flashbacks she was sure she had sisters, and she would without a doubt love them. Hopefully when she met them they would like her friends and Luffy, which brings her to the question. How you like Usopp, right? Maya's face turned apple red, and she waved her hands in front of her face, denying the fact. Because if you don't, that makes you a rival in Luffy's love. Hancock shouted with venom in her voice. Okay, I do like Usopp. Please don't tell him. Sure, that's just a secret between us. Hancock calmed down and took a sip of tea. Luffy looked up in the sky as bored as ever. He wanted something to do and he already ate all the food out of boredom. According to Nami, there weren't any islands around, but she probably said that to shut him up. He wanted something to do so badly, so he would see if Makino had something for him to do. Just as he was about to yell Makino, a piece of paper landed on his face from the sky. He looked at the piece of paper and a smile brightened on his face. Yeah. His cheer could be heard all around the ship. Waking Zoro up, distracting Usopp, and everyone else came running to his aid. They found the Straw Hat Boy sitting on his claimed seat. He himself turned around and presented them with the paper. All around eyes gashed, mouths dropped, and hearts stopped. Straw Hat Monkey D. Luffy. Wanted dead or alive. 20 million. Damn, so much for staying low, thought Bonnie. That's the same amount as Arlong, thought Nami. Hancock ran up to Luffy and gave him a great hug, with those melons pressed in his face. She cheered on how happy she was for him. Thanks, Hancock, said Luffy. The only one with questions here had to be Makino. Luffy, how did you get a bounty already? It's probably what I told those marine guys back at Syrup Village. Flashback. Luffy walked on his own to an unknown location. Suddenly 2 marine officers, one being a captain and the other a lower rank, not like could tell, approached him. Excuse me sir, but can we ask for your name, said the higher officer. It's Monkey D. Luffy. He was cut off by the other officer. We heard that you defeated Kuro with 1,000 plans. Without much effort. So we ask you to join us in the Marines. Not interested is all that he said. The young boy walked past them without speaking another word. Curious to find out why they moved in front of him. Why not? The higher officer asked. Because I'm the future pirate king. End of flashback. So after that they tried to arrest me and I kicked their ass. Makino smacked the idiot in the back of the head, but this was only the tip of the iceberg. Both Bonnie and Nami teamed up and started stomping him on the ground. After they finished they high-fived each other and walked off. Nami herself was soon encountered by Hancock. Do you really think it's so easy to beat on my Luffy and not face me? Hancock said, enforcing the fear. For the last time, I do not love Luffy. Shouted Nami. Ha! I never said you did. Nami ran off, not wanting to deal with this any further. She ran into the bathroom and closed the door behind her. She quickly washed her face and took a look at herself in the mirror. This wasn't really happening, she was not safe now, so she had to leave. It would be the best, it's not like she could stay with them forever. Then there was Hancock, always barking her about Luffy. Sure, he was handsome and strong. He had a great personality and soothing eyes. He was even kind of funny at times. Wait, why was she thinking like this? This is just what Hancock wants, so she can't allow herself to think like that. But it was hard to deny the facts. Back in the nursing room, Kaya had completed the medicine to help out Hancock. Kaya deduced she had transient amnesia. With that knowledge, it wasn't hard to conduct a home remedy of nuts, fruit, and other ingredients. She went to the counter to pick up the remedy, but had a strange occurrence. "Is there a problem?" Hancock asked. Kaya had no idea what happened. She was 100% positive she placed the remedy there. The only other reason was that someone could have walked in here and took it. But who would do that? "You ate all the food." "I was hungry." "We are going to kill you." She had her answer. It was a shame, it all pointed to Luffy, and Hancock would be crushed. She then hears the door slams, and it doesn't take long for her to realize Hancock stormed out the door. She sat back in her chair and only imagined what she got herself into by joining this crew. She stepped up and went to check on Usopp. "Your dad was a super strong guy, Usopp. He never missed his mark and is probably one of the greatest snipers in the world. He never ever stopped talking about you, and to tell the truth, it was annoying. Hey, are you a cool sniper like him? You should join my crew." Usopp remembered what Luffy told him. If what he said was true, and he was sure it was, then his father did love him. His father was a really sharp and cunning sniper, he wanted to be like him. But the way he was now, there was no way that he could get strong enough to survive the dangers of the Grand Line. He already tried to convince him not to go, but Luffy's mind was made up. He also claimed that it might help Hancock figure out who she was. And the last thing he wanted was to go against Hancock, that woman was scary at times. He needed training and lots of it. So he turned to the only person he could for help. "What do you want, Usopp?" asked Zoro, still half asleep. "I have a question for you." Usopp's hands shook similarly in the way they went against Buggy. Should he forget about it? No. If he wanted to get stronger, he had to get more positive. "Zoro, can you please train me? I am too weak to protect Kaya, I am too weak to protect my friends. Please Zoro, can you train me?" He was begging him. Zoro gave him a look of intimidation as if he was testing Usopp. This lasted for a minute before Zoro said, "Sure, but you better be ready." "Yes. Thank you Zoro, you won't forget it." "Get off me, you idiot." Zoro and Usopp heard laughing from around the corner. They turned around to see Nami and Bonnie laughing at the two males hugging each other. "I thought there was something I liked about you," said Bonnie. "Screw you, woman." "Zoro, you are so easy." Zoro quickly grabbed his Wado Ichimonji. He could have sworn he heard a voice come from it. Crazy thing was, he recognized the voice. Maybe it was nothing. Makino was a mostly experienced cook, always cooking for Luffy and clients. But that wasn't the problem laid on there being no food. She had heard of a nearby restaurant called the Baratie, so maybe they would be willing to give them some food supplies. Wait, someone just came on the ship. She heard the voices of one man. "You damn pirates. You are going to pay." What else could go wrong today? She ducked a slice from his sword. Whoever the man was, he clearly was rusty with a sword. Before he could swing again, Bonnie kicked him in the gut and sent him flying to the wall. "Johnny?" Bonnie looked up at Zoro, noticing he was looking down at them. "Zoro, who is this guy?" asked Nami. Instead of Zoro answering, the man identified as Johnny spoke up. "Big bro Zoro, what are you doing here?" After explanations, which went longer than it should have, Johnny learned that Zoro was a part of this pirate crew. Johnny told them someone from this ship shot a direct cannon at them. Suddenly all eyes fell on Luffy. "I'm sorry," he apologized. "I never thought Big Bro Zoro would join a pirate crew. Especially with Monkey D. Luffy and jewelry," Bonnie said. Johnny. "Wait, Bonnie, you have a bounty?" asked Nami. "It's not something I really want to talk about right now," said Bonnie. Heading back to the real conversation, Zoro asked Johnny where somebody named Yasaku was. After another variety of explanations, Yasaku was now in the nurse's room on the bed. Kaya revealed he was suffering from scurvy, a disease you get from not eating enough fruit. This brought up the conversation of a cook. "Luffy, we are going to need a more experienced chef than myself," said Makino. "It's settled, then we will go to Baratie to get a new cook," Luffy declared. The Going Merry sailed to the direction of the sea restaurant. Everyone is doing their own little thing or just hanging out with a member of the crew. Kaya is working on another medicine for Hancock. This time she would not let Luffy eat it. Nami and Bonnie sat down reading different sections of the newspaper. Hancock is feeding Luffy some cake that Makino made for them. Makino told her that she was really shipping these two despite the age difference. Here you go Luffy, another piece offered by Hancock. With Luffy's acceptance she fed him another piece of cake. Hancock was glad she had her own secret stash of food before Luffy could get to it. It wouldn't really matter anyway since she had saved and all for Luffy. This is good Hancock, thanks a bunch, said Luffy. He was glad that he chose Hancock as a nakama, she was always so nice to him. The only time he found her a bit too much was when she picked fights with Nami, he liked Nami. But as long as they fought as nakama then it would be fine. But the swordsman and sniper, Zoro had promised Usopp that he would train him the best he could. He didn't really know much about sniping, but he knew pretty much all basics that even Usopp needed help in. He noticed during the battle with Buggy, Usopp shakes a lot and he not so good with fighting the enemy directly on. So he requested that Johnny and Yasaku have a sparring match with him. Ready Zoro began. Fire. Usopp repeatedly began shooting a piece of his ammo, one by one as Johnny and Yasaku charged towards him. He only managed to hit them a few times and he could barely dodge their attacks. When he did get some distance between them he wasn't fast enough to launch another attack. Usopp, you have to move faster. The enemy won't wait for. Time will always be your worst enemy. After 30 minutes of brutal training it was time for a break. Zoro advised Usopp that he should probably upgrade his slingshot weapons. Zoro himself went on deck and had a sip of booze. He looked off into the distance and saw that they are approaching the sea restaurant. Boy, the sea restaurant is right ahead, shouted Zoro. Later the ship docked, but as they did they noticed a marine ship much bigger than the Mary. The captain of this ship stepped forward. He had pink hair, making Makino wonder if him and Kobe are related. Hey pirates, who are you? I haven't seen your flag before, rudely asked the lieutenant. This pissed Makino off. She had spent these cleaning the mouths of the crew. Especially Nami and Zoro, who knew their way around some words. Rude, said Makino. We made a flag a couple of days ago, said Luffy. Is that a problem, Boa asked standing next to him. Silence filled the air, leaving the crew in wonder. What's a warlord doing here in the East Blue? Shouted, asked all the marines. The marines couldn't believe what they were seeing. How and why was this happening? The sensation took over their bodies, so their next words were not chosen carefully. Please let us see your panties. A demonic aura covered all women of the crew, but Boa was the only one to take action. Maru Hancock released heart waves from her hands, turning all the marine men into stone. Including the lieutenant who had a date. She saw everything and anger overtook her, so she pushed him. This was over. All the members of the crew turned to Hancock. Hancock, that was so cool. How did you do that? Asked a curious Luffy. Hancock couldn't stop the blush on her face. It was just something I picked up at the moment. It was nothing really. Are you kidding me? First you know how to predict moves, then this Luffy found himself sucked into by Hancock. When he realized this he closed his eyes and went back, at least that's what he thought. What was happening at the moment was really making the crew feel uncomfortable. Kaya grabbed Usopp's hand thinking he was going to get the message. Usopp was, but didn't know how to go right to it. Okay, I thought we had to get a new chef, Nami pointed out. Luffy broke the dissatisfied Hancock. You're right Nami, let's go in, he spoke like it never happened. Later him, Zoro, Usopp, Makino and Kaya went of ship in search for their new chef. She didn't want to seem selfish, but Hancock wanted more. At least she could breath now for someone who claims his inexperienced sure does do it well. She looked over to Nami and Bonnie having a conversation. So Nami, you sure seemed in a hurry to break the, teased Bonnie. Don't be ridiculous, I could care less. I just didn't want to keep watching Nami. So you were jealous that Luffy had me and not you, claiming Hancock appearing next to the tangerine-haired girl. Nami really didn't feel like dealing with this at the time. I don't love Luffy, I don't find him attractive in any type of way. Hancock was about to speak, but was derailed when a bounty paper flew in Nami's face. She couldn't see what was so special about it, all she could tell was that it made the girl look lifeless. Nami tightened the grip on the bounty paper and tucked it away in her pocket. She walked away without saying another word, which almost seemed out of character. Good. With Nami gone and nobody else around, Bonnie could address Hancock. So tell me, do you not really remember, or is this just a game? Asked Bonnie. What? Asked Hancock. Don't tell me you really don't know. You are the pirate empress boa Hancock, one of the many warlords of the sea, Bonnie told her. You are the queen of Amazon Lily, an island that is exclusive to women only. Hancock was speechless. When she put the words she said and then her recurring dreams, it all made sense. She looked at Bonnie as she had one word left to say. You also have an infamous hatred for men. Nuo? Hancock ran to the girl's cabin and slammed the door behind her. How could she hate men? She loved Luffy. So to hate a man is to hate Luffy, then she wouldn't accept it. Her love for Luffy was real, and no one could tell her otherwise. Yes, she loosely remembered who she was at this point, but she could only do one thing. She blocked it out. She blocked the whole fact on who she really was out of her head. She didn't accept it at all. As long as she kept doing that, she could stay with her beloved Luffy. Luffy had already left trying to convince the chef called Sanji to join them. Zoro didn't know why, but he could feel all sorts of trouble coming from that man. Just as much trouble as he got from Wado. The voice that spoken from it before was Kunai's, he was sure about that. But why was she here? Was it because her spirit was still trapped in her sword? He couldn't think much of it because a blonde waitress came to him. "Hey there handsome, what's your order?" she greeted. Zoro grunted. She had to disturb him now of all times. "I already ate so I'm not hungry," Zoro told her, and she still stood there. "Is there something you want?" "It's nothing, I just never get to see a manly man like you," she swooned. "If joining your crew means joining you and getting away from that perverted cook, then I am in." That was easier than he thought. "Can't you feel it, Zoro? Our time to prove who's the world's greatest swordsman is," he heard from Wado. Sanji did as he normally did and cooked in the kitchen. Cooking over the hot stove, he thought about what the rubber boy asked him earlier. Joining a pirate crew? Foolish. He belonged here on the Baratie with Chef Zeph and Summer and everyone else. He would admit getting some fresh air was a nice thought, but he could never leave here. Turning the stove off, signaling his final decision. He wasn't going to leave, and that was that. "I don't care how beautiful Nami Swan is. It won't be enough to make me leave," Sanji muttered to himself. "Sanji?" called a female voice. Sanji turned around facing Summer. For some reason looking at the woman made him sigh. "We need to have a chat." Before Sanji could open his mouth, Summer continued. "I'm leaving." That struck a nerve in the blonde's head. Even then he still went the calm, cool route. "You don't mind if I ask what is right?" "I'm joining Luffy and his crew. I want to see the world," Summer told him, emotion everywhere in her voice. "Come with me, Sanji, we don't have to stay here for the rest of our lives. We can live our dreams." Summer tried to convince me. However, Sanji didn't seem too convinced, if not at all. "Sorry Summer, but you know for a fact I will never leave the old man. You can go on without me." "I don't care." Those last two words went in a different tone. I don't care, of course he cared, he just wouldn't show it. Summer had actually shattered a little. She believed she meant at least something. "Fine." She shut the door behind her without another word. Bonnie strolled in the dining room. Her conversation with Hancock went nowhere, in a sense, she didn't care. Shrugging, Bonnie decided to eat. She found her fellow crew members at a table, but for what she wanted it cost a whole table. "Greetings you dirty crook, what'll you have?" asked Patty. Bonnie smirked. "Give me pizza and lots of it." Miss, you have meatballs in your hair," Patty said. "I'll just." "Don't touch my food," Bonnie shouted. Everyone looked a bit surprised at the way the woman was eating, except Makino. As far as she could tell, it was like feeding Luffy. Looking again, she noticed her table manners were off. "Sitting on a table while you eat. Honestly, Bonnie." Makino sighed. Makino looked back now, seeing Zoro walk up to her. "Woman, you either sit in a chair or not at all." Zoro scolded her. "What the hell do you want, swordsman? Go away, I'm eating." Bonnie scoffed. Slobbering down another pizza, Bonnie remembered a fact about Zoro. He inhaled a lot of booze and rum. She wondered exactly how big his tolerance was. "Nah, Zoro, let's have a drinking contest." Zoro raised a brow and smiled at what she offered. "Finally you're thinking right. I didn't take you for a drink. I'm just curious how high your tolerance is," Bonnie admitted. At this, the entire restaurant gathered at the competition, including the Straw Hats. Everyone placed small bets wagers on who would win. Kaya and Nami put their money on Zoro. Nami never lost a bet. Hancock decided to prove Nami wrong and went with Bonnie. Makino was the only one left out, deciding she didn't want any part of gambling. Sanji didn't like seeing such a beautiful woman go against a moss head. Pink locks of hair, tangerine blush, the god of sexy woman. Wait. I'm describing all beautiful ladies at once. They're just so beautiful. Sanji swooned in his head. Done. Bonnie threw the bottle down in defeat. She could barely lift her head from the exhaustion. Zoro lifted her head, looking into her eyes, taunting with his laugh. "Looks like you couldn't beat me, woman." His devilish smile didn't help her situation. Bonnie couldn't take it, actually feeling helpless. That wasn't her. "Get off my moss head." The pain from her head was worth that yell. "Moss head, nice one, Bonnie-chan," Sanji complimented. "Back off. Pervert." Bonnie sent Sanji crashing into the wall. The latter stood up and simply dusted himself off. Once again Zoro laughed. "You're a good one." Nami quietly sneaked back on the ship. She didn't feel too good about stealing it from her so-called friends. She had enjoyed herself with them and honestly wished she could have stayed longer. However, she had problems so big that she couldn't enjoy herself. At least she could say that she wouldn't miss Hancock honestly. Lifting her shirt up halfway in the most seductive way possible, she turned to Johnny and Yusaku. "Boys, you wouldn't mind turning around so I can change, right?" "Of course not, big sis," Johnny said, blushing like a daisy. When he turned around, Yusaku soon followed. She could hear them making stupid comments about her. Guess you wouldn't feel so horrible. Sneaking up to them like the sly cat she was, Nami grabbed hold of their backs. Right before pushing them off. What the? Big sis, Nami. Smiling nonchalantly, she leaned over the railing. Sorry boys, the time I had was fun, but now I have to leave. Tell the others if we meet again then it was truly meant to be. She didn't say another word, no matter how much of the pleas she heard. Nami had a responsibility she had for 7 years. She wasn't going to let anyone get in the way of her almost finished goal. Sanji, join me. Luffy shouted. Sanji wasn't happy with this, the kid already got Summer, why does he still want him? Couldn't he just take his beautiful woman and go before he dies of blood loss? Excuse me sir, there's blood dripping out your nose. A man complained. I refuse. Sanji shouted. I refuse. Luffy countered. What? I refuse your refusal. Luffy explained. What the hell? Sanji shouted. He was ready to kick the kid highway into heaven. Just after preparing his leg a croaky voice came from the kitchen. Sanji, get back to work. Damn that old man, Sanji knew the kid would get his soon enough. Summer walked up to the unfortunate pirate, also her captain. Good luck with that, he won't leave this ship to save his life. She said, cleaning up a cup. I don't care, I'm not leaving until he joins us. Luffy responded. Summer smiled knowing she made a good choice. She had yet to see the inside of the ship but she couldn't wait to live in her new home. Captain, how about I make you some sweets? Yosh. Sure thing. Luffy agreed. Turning her head back facing a certain swordsman. I can make some for you too, Zoro. She didn't get an answer from the latter other than a simple pout. Either way she took that as a yes. He regretted nothing. Sanji knew the outcome before it happened. Not even when Don Krieg reneged his words and revealed his intent on seizing the Baratie. And when the other chef cursed him for bringing ruin on them. He still remained nonchalant. A promise was a promise and when it came to protecting the Baratie. He would fight for his life. With every waking moment, or should he shake? He didn't know what was bugging her. This sensation all started when Don Krieg showed up. Kuina kept muttering how it was time to prove himself, the world's greatest swordsman. Zoro could only think of one thing. Mihik. Suddenly a great noise from outside caused all the pirates to run outside. All of them saw Krieg's galleon fall apart. Worried about Mary, the pirates rushed towards where they docked her. Only to find Johnny and Yasaku in the water. Johnny, Yasaku, what happened? Where's Mary? Luffy asked them. It was big sis Nami, she took advantage of the distraction and pushed us overboard. Yasaku responded. That whore. How dare she take what's precious to Luffy? I'll kill her. Hancock thought of 100 ways of disabling her. Nami did that. Luffy muttered. How could she? What was she even doing? She couldn't have gotten far, I'll stay here and fight with the cooks. The rest of you have to go after her. Luffy ordered. For some reason Hancock started blushing and her voice became almost high-pitched. Luffy, you are so smart. An awful silence suddenly filled the atmosphere. For Krieg had been raging just a moment ago, he was more silent than ever. The cause of the silence caused a multitude of things. Zoro had directly challenged him, Hawkeye's for the title of world's greatest swordsman. Hawkeye's, your head is mine. Zoro challenged. Hancock grabbed a twisted pain in her stomach, she recognized the swordsman. Just as the swordsman recognized her. Mihik ignored Zoro, having his intention more focused on Hancock. I was hoping for something that could hold my interest. Little did I expect to find the pirate empress in the East Blue. Mihik said. Shocked stares were his only reply. Hancock, do you know him? Luffy asked. Hancock bit her lip, she was not ready for this. Could she lie and get away with it? No, Mihik was smarter than that. That left her last option, but with that she could lose the trust of her beloved Luffy. I've given up on my old life, I have a new one with Luffy. That means I have nothing to do with the warlords anymore. Mihik couldn't say he was shocked at the least. In his days he's heard from strangers. Are you saying you're giving up everything and could care less about what happens to Amazon land? I am. Hancock believed whatever happened her sisters would protect the land. They would understand if they'd known her predicament. Mihik wouldn't question her further. He still had boredom to kill, the swordsman in front of him could kill that. Sanji braced himself for Pearl's finishing move. Instead of it hitting his head, nothing happened. This was because Summer blocked his attack with only her leg. Pearl forced his disc harder in, realizing his close attempt Summer lightened her weight. Souring in the air over him, Pearl wondered what was going on. Summer, stop. Jin will kill the old man. Sanji pleaded. 100 kilogram press. Crack. Summer shattered his armor and plummeted Pearl through the floor. After this, Summer closed her umbrella, immediately encountered by Sanji. Why would you do that? Jin gonna. Sanji was cut off. Quiet Sanji, Jin wasn't going to kill him. Summer argued. She was proven right when Jin refused to kill Zeph. This caused an argument between him and Sun. In the end, Krieg disbanded him from his role. Barely alive, his awareness was but a little speck of darkness. "Sir, state your name," Mihawk told him. Crossing his swords together then swinging them at rapid speed. Zoro wouldn't lose here, he still had a promise to fulfill. "Rarana Zoro," he stated. "Zoro, stop being a weakling. You promised me, now make the promise." At the worst time possible, Kuina shouted from Wado again. He couldn't let this be a distraction. "I'll remember it, I haven't come across someone as strong as you in quite some time." Mihawk finished his statement by bringing out his swords. "Now as a swordsman courtesy I will defeat you with the world's strongest black sword." "I appreciate it." "I don't." "Damn it, shut up Kuina," Zoro mentally shouted. "I won't Zoro, you were weak when we were kids. And you're weak now. I'm tired of letting you have control, now it's my turn." "What?" At that point Zoro started losing any control he had. He eternally fought back, but Kuina wasn't having any of it. Resistance was futile, and Kuina found the suit of her new body. She wondered what it was like having the body of a man. Kuina turned around to Baratie, watching everyone wondering what happened. She cracked them a smile just for the fun of it. Then turned her attention to the greatest swordsman. "I hope you're ready to die, Mihawk," Kuina taunted. All three swords began glowing with a violent purple aura. Her eyes glowed purple just as she crossed her swords. With the sharpest of blades she dashed towards him. Sword style. 1,000 birds. Fall. In the blink of an eye Kuina was past the world's greatest swordsman, reheating her glowing blades. Mihawk's cheek erupted with blood. "Remarkably, not only have you managed to win my cheek," started Mihawk, "but you've even managed to make me draw my sword." Finishing his words Kuina erupted with blood. "How? I am stronger than Zoro, I shouldn't be able to lose." Kuina's eyes flashed as she fell to the ground. The foot was put down stopping the fall. "I told you Kuina to let me keep control," Zoro mumbled, stopping the fall. As soon as he resumed control the pain hit him like a bus. "Damn it. I never would have imagined I'd lose. So this is the touch of the world's greatest swordsman." Zoro turned to Mihawk, opening his arms up. "Why?" Mihawk questioned. Zoro smiled. "Scars from behind are a swordsman's shame." "Admiral." Mihawk cut Zoro's open, giving the mother open wounds. "Zoro. Zoro." Makino held back her tears, staying cool and collected. "Kaya got the first aid kit and lots of painkillers." "Right," said Kaya. Mihawk smiled at the man and his captain one more time before taking his departure. "I'll be waiting for you both in the new world." By his order most of his crew had gone after Nami. The only one left behind was Hancock that just had to be by Luffy. The latter catapulted himself towards Krieg's ship ready for a fight. "Stupid boy. Don't." Krieg held his face where Luffy had given him a well punch. "What's with you cooks fighting for a restaurant?" "That's not why I punched you," Luffy told him. "Then why did you?" Krieg glared. Luffy raised his voice. "Because you said you're going to be Pirate King, I'm going to be Pirate King. Not you." Krieg stared at him for a while before he burst out laughing. "You're gonna be Pirate King, just because you ate a devil fruit doesn't mean you can be king. You're at a disadvantage anyway, you can't swim." "It doesn't matter, I'm still gonna kick your ass," Luffy exclaimed. Luffy threw another punch at the pirate captain. Krieg being on guard this time blocked with a coat of spikes, which Luffy unhesitatingly punched through, sending Krieg skirting across the deck as the boy took his place on the figurehead, his hands dripped with blood. "My name's Monkey D. Luffy and the future Pirate King," Luffy proclaimed. Sanji couldn't believe it, the boy preached his dreams. Didn't let anyone tell him otherwise. "I'm gonna be the Pirate King. I'm gonna find the all blue." He reminded him of himself. Monkey D. Luffy Krieg recovered and rose to his feet again. "I'll carve your tombstone." Jin realized what Don't Krieg meant. "MH5, boy watch out. A poison gas weapon. Is he crazy?" Summer said. Hancock, catching on to what was happening, quickly came up with a plan. If it worked then it could end this fight. "You, woman, fly me across the ship," Hancock ordered. "You want me to do what?" Summer asked. "You heard me, fly me across the ship so I can save my beloved." Knowing she heard it right, Summer gave Hancock a nod. 10 seconds later a purple streak hurled to the ground on Don Krieg's ship. Above the man himself. Whack. There was an awful silence amongst the fighters. Luffy didn't know what happened, but where Don Krieg was so alive at one point was now shattered on the deck. Now Hancock was smiling at her wonderful success. "Don't worry Luffy, Hancock will protect you." 1. "I don't need to protect Boa, I was just fine on my own," Luffy told her with an annoyed tone. "My apologies." Hancock bowed. But Son Krieg defeated everyone and everything calmed down. Jin took Krieg and the rest of the pirates away from the restaurant. While the cooks plus Luffy and Hancock went back to the restaurant, Sanji was almost pushed into joining Luffy when in reality that was what he wanted anyways. At another time Yasaku appeared saying that everyone else was in trouble. As they made their departure the man Sanji known made his appearance. Zeph came just in time to wave them off goodbye. Chef Zeph. Sanji bowed on the ground crying his eyes out. Thank you, I will never forget your kindness. Soon everyone else cried along and even Zeph himself. Idiots, man should just leave without saying words. Till we meet again, you bastards. It had been a while, but not long since they've been sent their mission. They would do anything for their queen even if that meant stepping out of their comfort zone. Aphilandra is the weak wolf of the pack, she didn't like not one place they've been since they left Amazon Lily. Sweet Pea had serious doubts from the beginning, she wanted nothing more than to give up. Every time Aphilandra would complain, Sweet Pea would lose her marbles and yell at her. Marguerite remained the peacemaker of sorts. Someone had to and she was the most level-headed of the three. Marguerite stood on the head of the ship, she pulled out an eternal log pose for Amazon Lily. Please my queen, be safe so we can travel home together. She thought. Whatever made you leave in the first place? Flashback. Marguerite sat on the beach, she watched the tides come in and out. Every day Hancock would leave the island, Marguerite would wait for her on the beach. She would do anything if it meant she could be around her beauty and fluttery essence. That's why she became a garden tender. Hancock loved her garden so she wouldn't let just anyone near it. That's how Marguerite knew Hancock trusted her. But she could only wish one thing. I wish that I could come with you, whispered Marguerite. She lifted her head on instinct, knowing that Hancock's ship would appear around this time. The smile of sunshine appeared on her face and stayed that way when Hancock came. Marguerite ran forward to meet with her queen. My lady, Marguerite Bose. I've been waiting for you like always. Hancock was slightly flattered by this. However her outer shell wouldn't show it. Whatever you say. Well you've been waiting here I hope my garden hasn't been neglected. No my lady. Marguerite popped up. I promise the roses, daffodils and scarlets have been watered. The watermelons and strawberries have been planted. Also I plucked the weeds just like you asked. She had to assure her that everything was in good care. Marguerite couldn't lose this. Fine. Hancock turned her back on Marguerite and started boarding the ship. I can't stay long. I should be back in. She went on, but Marguerite didn't listen. Why did she have to leave? Why was she always left behind? Was she really so little? Why can't you ever go with you? Official members of the Kuja tribe can go places, but God forbid me. Marguerite gasped when she realized what she had done. She couldn't even look Hancock in the face after what she had done. Marguerite bowed down, praying it would be enough to please her lady. I am sorry my lady. You may think little of me. Hancock slightly giggled before she lifted Marguerite's head. Don't worry about it, my flower. I think you're pretty great. End of flashback. Marguerite whipped the tears from her face. I'll find you Hancock, I promise. Hey. Marguerite, we have arrived at Baratie Archipelago. Sweet Pea informed her. Marguerite quickly snapped out her funk. Good. Now we look for the man named Silver's Rayleigh. She took her leader knowing she couldn't look weak in front of the other two. Especially since they arrived at the hell disguised as paradise. Baratie Archipelago. A place filled with pirates, slavers, and nobles. There was no right or wrong in Baratie. Money decides everything. If money meant slavery then shall it be. If money meant corruption, then so be it. That's how it functioned here. If you aren't strong, then you're weak. The weak prey. At worst a noble's slave. Marguerite knew she had to keep her team safe, or else they would be slaved. Suddenly a giant sea king rose from the sea. Aphilandra screamed. Marguerite looked up and gave the sea king a cold look. She didn't have the time nor the patience for this. Die. She stretched out her bow before firing it at the beast. It gushed straight through its head. Seconds passed before it ignited in flames. The sea beast died down and fell into the ocean. Wow you're Marguerite you're a badass. Aphilandra cheered. On the outside Marguerite may have seemed badass. But on the inside she was freaking out thinking things along the lines of, how did I do that? Am I crazy? My lord I can never do that again. Her eternal thinking was interrupted when a supposed spitball spat from the ocean and onto the deck. It didn't take long for it to capture all the girls' attention. Marguerite had already armed herself, Sweet Pea clenched her fist, and Aphilandra hid behind a chair. Despite being bigger than the chair itself. However it came closer and closer until they realized it had a human body and fishtail. No way. Marguerite gasped. It can't be. Gasped Sweet Pea. Burn it with fire. Yelled Aphilandra. Around this time an unknown crash landed onto Aphilandra's head. The girl frightfully looked up, Aya. Sweet Pea and Marguerite turned to the girl alarmed. The latter pointed her arrow, but once she realized what it was she lowered her arm. Get it off me. Get it off me. Sweet Pea's face grew aggravated before she burst at the taller girl. Would you get over yourself, it's a stupid starfish. Aphilandra started to calm herself. However, the starfish on her head made matters worse. Hey baby. I wouldn't call me stupid. Everyone looked up seeing that it was the starfish that talked. Yes, the starfish. My name's Papig and I'm pretty intelligent for a starfish. The figure that was confirmed to be a mermaid stood up. Marguerite was the first to notice, so she didn't even pay attention to the freakout behind her. The mermaid has light green hair and her tail is bright pink. She also has a t-shirt with the criminal brand logo on it. The mermaid looked at Aphilandra, making her eyes pop out and mouth gaps open. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. The mermaid scooted over and picked up Papig, who she placed in her hands. Are you okay? Aphilandra was in too much shock to give a proper answer back. She let her nod do the speaking for her. Ah. I'm surprised there are so many humans here. The mermaid in question screamed. Her face faltered once more. However, she quickly grew calm. Anyway, thank you for saving me from getting digested. That's the 20th time today. Sweet Pea put her palm up. You get eaten too much. The Amazons took a while, but they finally got things clear with the mermaid. Her name turned out to be Kami. She is an easily shocked but sweet mermaid. Apparently getting eaten by sea monsters was a running gag for this girl. The Amazons would have dropped her off on Grove 42 and went on their way. But by a stroke of coincidence, Kami knew of a woman named Shaki that knows Rayleigh. It wasn't Rayleigh himself, but they are still close. After a well-fought debate, Marguerite decided to go in alone. Kami led Marguerite to the bar while the latter hopped not to be noticed by slavers. As Marguerite approached the bar, she could feel the eyes on the back of them. Marguerite opened up the door and found who she assumed to be Shaki drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. Excuse me, are you Shaki? Marguerite asked. Yes, I am. And who might you be? Shaki asked before sending a wink. Would you like a drink? My name is Marguerite. She sweat dropped as she answered the next question. No, I wouldn't like a drink. But Marguerite cleared her throat, wanting to sound as polite as possible. I would like some information. If you want information, you'll have to pay me first. Shaki leaned closer as a smirk grew on her face. It doesn't have to be money. Anything at all will work. Marguerite didn't have anything other than money. Not that she would or could give anything else away. She handed Shaki the money without question. The woman in return said, now what do you want, sweetie? Marguerite gripped her hands on the counter. I'm looking for a man named Silvers Rayleigh. He knew my queen, boa Hancock. Shaki's eyes were momentarily shocked. To calm herself, she took out a cigarette. Let me guess. You're one of the Amazons. She asked me to light the cigarette. Marguerite opened her mouth, but Shaki covered her lip. I've known your leader since she was a child. I helped hide her from slavers way back then. Slavers? My queen has never mentioned such a thing. Marguerite thought sadly. She started grabbing her arm, she felt left out. Left out an important part of her queen's life. Would she dare to enter? Rayleigh helped her as well. But first I must know what happened to her. Hello. Marguerite still stayed in her thoughts. She didn't bother to even listen to what Shaki was saying. My queen. I want to help you, but I have to know more about you first. Please forgive me. Marguerite looked up at Shaki. Excuse me, but it isn't too hard. Can you explain the slavers to me? Shaki opened her mouth, however the sound of footsteps interrupted her. Whoever it was stayed reluctant to take their time. However, just by the footsteps Shaki was able to tell who it was. Marguerite noticed the expression on her face. This left her in an odd yet exciting position. You say you're looking for Hancock. Her mouth started to gap open, knowing exactly who it was. What trouble has that woman gotten herself into this time? Marguerite couldn't believe it, her prayers had been answered. He would resemble his wanted poster perfectly if it wasn't for the age gap. She would have fainted when the man gazed up at her. You're Marguerite, correct? Hancock has spoken about you before. Now you mind telling me? My queen spoke about me. I feel so honored. She snapped out of her mind. Rayleigh was speaking and she knew it was important to listen. Meanwhile in the East Blue. So is anybody hungry? Sanji, the newest cook of the Straw Hats, came out of the kitchen. He was immediately crowded by a very hungry and anxious Luffy and Yasaku. The cook didn't take too kindly to that, making him kick both away. Don't you idiots know your manners? Ladies first. The cook turned to Hancock, who was relaxing. My beautiful snake princess, what would you like for lunch? Hearing the cook, Hancock looked from the water then towards him. Nothing, duck cook. I'm not in the mood right now. As you wish. Sanji bowed. Afterwards Yasaku crowed the cook once again. Big bro Sanji, can you make some fried tuna? Sanji blankly looked up at the swordsman before he sighed and walked away. Sorry, but I have a strict policy on not cooking fish unless absolutely needed. Sanji walked towards the kitchen. I'll just make you some fried rice instead. Isaku sighed over the railing. Why can't Big Bro Sanji make fried tuna? He wondered. Meanwhile, Summer encountered Luffy with a plate of pudding cups. Luffy was all too happy to have such yummy sweets fed to him. All yours, Luffy. Eat as much as you like. Summer smiled. She was glad her captain had a sweet tooth. She was always told a man's stomach was the quickest way to his heart. Without a doubt Hancock would have attacked if she saw this. But she was too busy looking at her own reflection. She told the hawk-eyed man that she quit the warlords. What was I thinking? No. Don't think like this now, Hancock. They'll be fine, I just knowed. Besides, I can never return after falling in love with a man. Meanwhile at the Baratie. The cook seemed extra busy this time around. It was only mere hours after Don Krieg attacked and they seemed like they're ready to leave. Zeph the head chef watched to see Sanji and Summer left on even after they were out of sight. Chef Zeph, sir. Called Patty. Zeph whipped the last tear off his eye before facing the other cook. What is it, Patty? Are we ready to go? Yes, sir. Patty answered. We'll head to Logue Town first, then the Grand Line next. I like the sound of that. The sadness in Zeph's voice could still faintly be heard. He couldn't help but be so proud of Sanji, his surrogate son. The look on his face when he sees us in the Grand Line. I bet he'll cry his eyes out. Nah, who am I kidding? I'll probably die from tears as well. Returning back to the Red Line in Shaki's bar. Rayleigh and Marguerite had a full-out conversation on the situation. Rayleigh would laugh at Hancock's predicament, but this was a very serious matter. According to Marguerite, Hancock is still very much alive. They had Salim who can locate the woman anywhere. So you need me as an escort? Rayleigh asked. Yes, sir. Marguerite nodded. Rayleigh couldn't help but feel there was more going on than meets the eye. Any person that knew human nature could tell from the stroke of his beard. Deal. As long as you provide the boat. Already done. Marguerite said gleefully, shaking the older man's hands. Her heart jumped around gleefully, she was only so far now. She will find her queen, and no one could stop her. Mihik sailed his little boat towards Marineford. He wasn't expecting to find so much in the backwater oceans of the East Blue. A two swordsmen and one appears to be the sword itself. Then a now rogue warlord who either has amnesia or could care less about the status anymore. Then that boy with the straw hat. Excuse me. Is Dracula Mihik correct? Hawk eyes looked at a passing rock. A man in a brown cloak, glasses, and deadly aura stood there. And you are? Asked Mihik. You can call me, the man started as he lifted down his hood, revealing himself as the same hazelnut-haired man that fought Hancock. Hora's life stone. Now you wouldn't mind answering my question, would ya? You see, I'm on the search for a certain woman. The two started in each other's eyes as if they were battling. Mihik had never heard of the man, but he knows that he should have. He looked ordinary enough but wasn't ordinary enough. There was just something about him that seemed off. Not wanting to go on further, Mihik turned away from him. Just so the man wouldn't bother him, he would answer his question. I found nothing other than pirates to kill time. Without wasting another moment, Mihik sailed off. Ora smirked as he started to pleading away. Thank you for the assistance. With their captain far behind their backs, it was up to the other quadrant of straw hats to retrieve Nami. Kaya had wrapped Zoro all up, healing his injuries temporarily. Since the swordsman was such a fighter, Usopp, with the help of Makino of course, had to tie him up to the post. Let me go. Demanded the swordsman before he switched to glare at Usopp. The latter started shaking as he did this. Let me go now or I'll make your training 10 times harder. As he threatened Usopp, his behind Makino. Please protect me, Makino. Cowered Usopp. Zoro still tried to untangle himself, he earned a hit over the head from Makino. Do as your doctor tells you. Those cuts you got are too serious. She noticed how the swordsman shook off the bump and continued his escape. Her eyes glowed red before, pow. She pulled a pan from thin air and hit him over the head. The surprisingly calm Bonnie bent down as she lifted up his head. I would help you if I could, Mosshead, but seeing you tied up is hilarious. She laughed as she patted his head. His hair was just a little smoother than she thought. She was tempted to go again, but that would seem weird. This should give you some time to think about improving your skills next time you fight Mihik. Said Bushido breathed heavily at each word. Bonnie giving him advice was something new, then again he didn't know the woman for that long. However, what she said about Mihik seemed to be more on his mind. What if the person that fought wasn't exactly Mikuina? Don't blame me, Zoro, it's not my fault your body is so weak. At least I have a body, and for your information I bet if you had one of your own, you would still lose. How dare you? Who beat you all those times when we were kids? You still don't get it, do you? It doesn't matter who won. What matters is that we lost. If we want to achieve our dream and become the world's greatest swordsman, then we can never lose again. But no buts about it. We have to learn to work together as swordsman and sword. While the swordsman had his mental battle, his fellow crewmates just watched in amazement on how still and quiet he was. Usopp stepped forward and waved his hand in front of him but gained no signal. It went unsaid that they would just let a good thing be. The group then searched the coast for a sign of the Going Merry. When they found said ship by a village, there were unfortunately some fishmen heading their way. This prompted Johnny and Usopp to grab the girls and jump the deck. Guina, Zoro laid his head back. "I man that can't control his weapon end up's dead." The swordsman stopped thinking and decided to come back to earth. "Kaya, can I on me?" He quickly discovered that he was left alone but not completely. Two fishmen stood over him. Even in the current situation, this couldn't help but remind him when he first met Luffy and Makino. Usopp and Johnny swam the girls to shore. After drying themselves off, they needed to get far away from the ocean. They end up walking into a town of ruins. "It must have been a fish man," gathered Makino. "Which would mean they are stronger than us. I guess it's a good thing Yasaku went back to get Luffy, Hancock, and the cook. Plus Oro is still injured," Kaya added on, thinking about the situation. "I just wondered when the realization hit. Oh my god, we left Zoro." Silence overcame the crew again. Makino began to worry, Usopp and Johnny panicked. Bonnie was the only one staying level-headed at the time. In fact, she laughed as she watched one of the fishmen take away Zoro. "Don't worry about Moss's head. He can handle himself," Bonnie assured the crew. Usopp and Johnny calmed down, but still had sweat marks over their faces. As Bonnie laughed at them, it suddenly hit her. One fishman took Zoro away, but two headed for the boat. Oh crap. She and soon everybody else noticed the fishman swim to shore. Usopp and Johnny quickly panicked. Johnny grabbed Makino, then ran off. Usopp would have grabbed Kaya, but the blonde was already halfway gone, with the only indication she was there was her dust. Without much time, Usopp took off running in Kaya's direction. "Screw you guys. You just left me," Bonnie shouted at the already gone pirates. She then felt the scaly, cold hands of the fishman grab her arm with much force. The fishman expected a frightful reaction like he would normally get. What he didn't know is that Bonnie is not or should be considered a normal person. Bonnie used her free hand, then worked her magic. He didn't realize it, but he was slowly converting into a smaller form. He didn't catch on until he noticed a significant height difference. "Wait, what did you do to me?" The squeaky voice, the tiny fishman asked. "I just changed you back into a child's small fry," Bonnie told him before she kicked him into the ocean. She smiled a bit when the small fry swam back home crying like a baby. "Priceless. Now to find Nami. That girl has some explaining to do," she said as she walked off. Meanwhile, Usopp and Kaya continued to run, not having any idea that there wasn't anything chasing them. As he kept running, Usopp fell over on a kid coming back from Arlong Park, then saw a blue-haired lady walking towards them. Thinking the fishman still chased them, Usopp picked up the kid then continued running. However, he was quickly knocked over the head by a staff from the blue-haired woman. "What do you think you're doing kidnapping a kid? Also you Chabo, challenging a fishman. Do you want to die? Because that's the quickest way to do it, Chabo," asked the woman. Usopp quickly dropped the kid, not wanting to be accused of kidnapping. Chabo dusted himself off as he glared at Usopp. He then looked away and began walking home. "I understand, Najiko," he sighed, walking off. "Please don't scold Usopp like that. He was only trying to protect us from the fish man," Kaya told Najiko, who raised an eyebrow at her. Kaya looked back, a sweat dropped when she noticed there wasn't a fish man. "I promised they were fish men." "Even though there was a fish man," Najiko started. "I would still stop you because that would give Arlong a bigger reason to destroy the villages. They didn't notice until now, but the village they occupied now does seem damaged. Who are you people anyway and why are you here?" "For your information, I am the great Captain Usopp." Usopp lied, but of course Najiko wasn't buying it. "We came here looking for a ship, Going Merry, also navigator Nami." "Nami?" said Najiko in a shocked tone. "This is certainly a small world. Nami is my little sister." As Usopp and Kaya were on one side of town, Nami, the missing navigator, is at a place called Arlong Park. When she arrived earlier to report to Arlong, she found that they captured Zoro. The latter decided on testing, more like messing with her, and nearly drowned himself. He would have died if she hadn't saved him. She left the park after that and came back later after all the fishman leaders, save Hachi, were gone. "I don't believe that for a second. Even if I did, Luffy would come here and kick Arlong's ass. Then you'll be back where you belong with the crew," Zoro told the tangerine-haired girl. "No. Don't interfere. This is all my business. It's not yours and it's not Luffy's," firmly stated Nami. She knew if she wanted to get her business done, she would have to cut all ties with the Straw Hats. "It became a business when you decided to sail with the straw hat wearing boy," Zoro stated as Nami walked out the door. "HN. Aren't you going to escape?" "I'll wait until I'm sure she's out of the park. Then I can slaughter these fish men." The Jiko lead, more like, was followed by Usopp and Kaya to Kokoyashi village. Things seemed fine for a town in poverty. It wasn't a day to collect bills, so everyone seemed neutral, more or less. Unfortunately, a man ran down the hill screaming, "The fish man is coming. The fish man is coming." The outburst quickly caused some commotion among the town. Everyone said things like, "Why?" or "Not again, even I don't have enough money yet." Nezuko quickly hid Kaya and Usopp so they wouldn't be found. It took a man named Genzo to speak up. "They must have heard about the weapons I've been harboring," he admitted. Right on cue, Arlong and his fishmen arrived. Just like Genzo had suspected, they came for him. His long shark nose hung over Genzo's forehead. "What's all this I hear about a weapon? You know they are forbidden." "No, I have to kill you," Arlong stated. Without hesitation, he grabbed Genzo's neck, which he squeezed like a banana. To his horror, Nezuko ran up and pleaded for his life, but Arlong didn't listen. He didn't listen, he didn't even acknowledge her appearance. She reached for her pocket knowing she would have to shoot Arlong. Genzo saw her and feared this, it would take a miracle. Exploding star. Boom, the explosion didn't affect Arlong at all. Despite that, it was enough to anger him. He glared like a shark at the long-nosed man on top of the building. "Or Usopp. Take that, you stupid fish man. You leave these people alone, I have a demon in my army and I'm not afraid to use him," shouted Usopp. "That you?" Zoro whipped his nose after getting a sneeze. "Someone must be talking about me." He yawned as he walked over the bloody fishman around him. He climbed over to a wall to meet an octopus fishman, Hachi. When Hachi asked him who he was, he replied he's a guest. Hachi explained that Arlong is in Kokoyashi village and he would give him a ride. "At that human, so I can hang his head on a plate." Usopp ran as fast as his chicken legs would take him as the fishman chased him. Arlong angrily left the village, completely forgetting what he came there for. As odd as it was, Nami entered the village just after they left. But instead of being welcomed, she was shunned by everyone except her sister. She then recognized a sandy-haired girl. "Aya, what are you doing here?" "First Zoro and now wait, don't tell me you all came," said Nami. At a terrifying thought of her friends being killed by Arlong, Aya came up and grabbed the girl's hands. "Of course we came. You are, and we won't abandon you. And I'm sure Moss had told you the same thing," the familiar voice told. Everyone looked back to see Bonnie munching on some pizza. "Face it, Nami, we'll only leave if you come with us." Out of frustration, Nami turned her back and marched away. Bonnie and Kaya attempted to follow, but Nezuko told them not to and that she'll handle it later. Somewhere between where the Baratie used to be and near Kokoyashi, Hancock and Luffy canoodle with each other, while Sanji, Yusaku, and Summer watch in jealousy. All the time was right, Hancock knew she had to get something off her. Her heart wouldn't allow her to keep quiet otherwise. "Luffy, have to tell you something." Luffy turned to her munching on meat, making her blush with embarrassment. "Well, sorry for interfering with your fights." She faked a smile knowing that's not what she wanted to say. "No problem, Hancock. Just don't do it again. I like to fight, you know," laughed Luffy. "How can I tell him? What monster will he think I am when I say I may have killed people? Just because of my selfish needs." Hancock is a coward in her mind. While eating, Luffy smiled at her, making her feel more guilt. The earth-shaking beating in heart continued until she had to say something. "Luffy, I have received my memories back," she quickly said. "Really? That's great," cheered Luffy. "So do you know where you live? We should go there." Luckily, Hancock was saved by a sudden sea cow's appearance. While Sanji, Luffy, and Yusaku did their thing, she sighed in relief. That was a close one. Hopefully he won't ask any more questions. And hopefully that pathetic excuse of a man won't go to Marine headquarters. "Hancock, help us with this sea cow," called Luffy. "Don't tell my mistress what I want to do," shouted Sanji. Tearfully, Hancock skipped over. When witnessing the result of what happened while he was away, Arlong was even more angry, only calming when someone told him they managed to catch the long-nosed man. When some of the crew said it must have been Nami to release the pirate because of her history of betrayals. All it took for Nami was to remind them of her goal. "Sure, Nami. But to completely prove your loyalty," Arlong sat back on his throne with his twisted smile. "You should kill your long-nosed friend. Then I'll happily welcome you back." Looking from Makino's or Johnny's point of view, one would clearly be able to see Nami stab Usopp and push him into the water. Makino gasped, not believing that Nami could be so heartless. Yusaku cried knowing now that Big Bro Usopp is dead. They both ran from their hiding spots with the intention of finding the crew. "I can't believe Usopp is dead," cried Johnny. "There's no time to cry now." Makino flinched. "Right now we have to find Luffy and Zoro." Meanwhile, Zoro and Bonnie ran at top speeds to save Usopp. The swordsman was reluctant to have a woman tag along, but Bonnie convinced him she was no ordinary woman. They both simultaneously looked up, then eyes widened with shock. "Oh shit, oh crap. Akram. Zoro and Bonnie along with Hancock, Sanji, Summer, and Yusaku. While the rubber captain laughed at the debris on the ground. Fortunately everyone was fine. It took Zoro to bring them up to speed. This reunion is nice and all, but we have to save Usopp. He was captured by the fish man. It's too late. Cried Johnny as he approached them. Usopp is already dead because Nami killed him. Suddenly Luffy gave a dark gaze. He was about to punch Johnny, but Makino grabbed his hand. It's true, Luffy. Me and Johnny saw her with our own eyes. Luffy still didn't believe it. He wasn't going to accept that Usopp was dead or that Nami was the one who killed him. Hancock didn't feel the same. In fact, she simply waved her hair. She killed Long Nose. That's not a surprise. I knew that woman couldn't be trusted. Shut up, Hancock. They suddenly tightened up. Everyone was surprised to hear Luffy shout that at Hancock. The latter covered her mouth and started shaking cowardly. We were fine just a moment ago. Why is he being so mean? She thought. Shut up, Hancock. Nami is yours. She would never kill Usopp, and you shouldn't believe it. For the first time Luffy shouted at her. Hancock had been placed into a position she didn't want to be in. For the first time the pirate empress was scared. Luffy, her love, is angry at her. Everyone was staring at her wondering what she might do next. It was too much to take. That was why she ran off crying. Then just like that Luffy calmed down. He immediately regretted what he just did. He didn't mean to hurt her feelings. He would have gone after her, but a familiar tangerine showed up. Apparently he had to deal with that first. Outside of town is a small house in the woods. The small house is surrounded with tangerine bushes and occupied with a weeping Amazon. Yes, Hancock ran into a random house after being yelled at by Luffy, her love. Luffy, why do you hate me? I do nothing but try and keep you happy. Hancock cried on the table. She could make a puddle from her tears. She could compare her heart to broken glass. He probably hates me now. All because I insulted that foolish woman. What does she have that I don't? She swung her hand out of frustration, but evidently knocked over a photo. She looked down, then picked it up. Her eyes slightly widened when she saw the photo of Nami and her family. A sister and a mother. Is this her home? Hancock took some time to observe the home. Seeing it in a different way now. Her home. Is that why? Hey, what are you doing here? Hancock jumped a bit. She didn't hear anyone come through the door. She expected it was Nami, but it turns out it is the woman who appears to be her sister. This is my house and I don't remember housing anyone else. My apologies. Hancock apologized. Something that felt alien to her if it was anybody but Luffy. I was just nothing. It isn't important. Hancock stood and attempted to leave. Nijiko however sat her back down. Stay, I insist. Nijiko took a seat across from her. So did you come here with that straw hat kid? He said he went looking for you. I see. What about the rest of them? Hancock asked. I told them my sister's story. The reason why she doesn't want to join you. Nijiko answered. But for some reason they still want to save her. Hancock fiddled her fingers a bit, nervous for what she was about to ask. Could you tell me her story? Sure. Nijiko said, taking a deep breath. You see me, Nami, Bellemere, and the rest of this town used to live in peace. My family didn't have the chance to live. In fact, we were pretty poor. But love for each other kept us going. Then one day, Arlong and his goons arrived. That changed everything. What happened to your mother? Hancock derailed Nijiko. She was killed right in front of me and Nami. She said like she told the story 1,000 times before. Me and Nami were both scared that day. Little did I know I have it easy. I'm not carrying the entire village on my back. What do you mean? Shortly after her mother was killed, Arlong kidnapped Nami. He figured out her amazing navigating ability, so he decided he would use it for his own personal gain. When Nami returned to the village, the first thing we found was that she had been marked and. So she became a slave. Hancock interrupted. That word marked the rest of Nijiko's explanation. Nami was a slave working under false pretenses. She was going to work all her life under the man who ruled her with an iron fist. And that mark would always be her reminder. I'm leaving now. Wait. Nijiko was too late. Hancock already shut the door behind her. A while after Hancock's and Nijiko's conversation. Everyone was revolting. Nami cried and begged them not to because it wasn't their problem. But by Genzo himself, she was told nobody could bear seeing her in pain anymore. That she tried everything she could to save them and now it's their turn. Everyone picked up their weapons that they had hid for the past 8 years and headed for Arlong Park. With intent on killing Arlong and his fishmen. Nami, seeing that the villagers wouldn't listen to her, did what they did all those years ago. Fell into despair because of Arlong's betrayal. Arlong. The saddened Tangerine took a knife and started stabbing her mark repeatedly. Arlong. 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 Luffy came up seeing Nami's face pale and terrified. He looked at Nami with a blank expression. He took a few steps forward before staring down at the navigator. Nami shakily lifted her head up as Luffy placed his hat on her head. "This hat is my treasure. Don't touch it." She berated herself for not seeing it before. This boy wasn't an average pirate devil user. He is the kind of person that would destroy the world for him. "Luffy, you don't know what's going on." "I know. This is none of your business. I told you to leave the island, didn't I?" "Yeah. You told me. Please help me." "I'll take care of it, Nami." Nami sat there stunned as Luffy walked towards Zoro, Usopp, Kaya, Makino, Summer, Bonnie, and Sanji. More tears threatened to escape, but she quickly sniffed and wiped them away with her hand. "Luffy, thank you." At Arlong Park. Arlong wasn't happy. He was attacked by a weakling human, then he finds a pirate hunter killed half his crew. But at least he had the assurance of Nami and her map-making skills. As long as he held onto her, he would get more money and the start of his empire. His moment of greed lasted only a few seconds when he heard his steel doors break down, bursting apart and tearing themselves open. "Great, now what?" "Hello," greeted a green-haired woman. The rest of the crew took notice of the destroyed entrance. They noticed 8 figures entered the park. Rorano Zoro, the long-nosed man, a green-haired woman, a generic girl, a woman with an umbrella, a man in a suit, a pink-haired woman, and finally, Straw Hat, Monkey D. Luffy. "I've been waiting to meet you," Arlong said. "You're right. That'll be me." Luffy walked slowly towards the merman, anger in his eyes. When more of his flunkies approached him, Luffy simply smashed both their heads together. Then continued his walk. "What does a pirate like you want with me?" Luffy stopped at Arlong's side, his expression unreadable. Until he punched Arlong with full-blown rage. "Never make my Nakama cry." The impact sent Arlong flying across his park to the wall and crashed into a wall, leaving a crater. "Arlong!" The lowly henchmen cried before they rounded on the one who attacked their leader. "Oil him." They all jumped, preparing for an attack. Their assault was halted due to a series of heavy kicks due to Summer and Sanji. The result led the fishmen out of commission. "This is a boss fight. Not yours." Summer smiled. "Weaklings shouldn't interfere with a fight anyway," Sanji added. Outside the gate, Johnny and Yasaku guarded the entrance, preventing anyone else from entering. Not even when Nijiko and Genzo demanded it. Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, and Bonnie faced off against Arlong's generals. Karubi, a manta ray fishman, Chu, a blowfish, and Hachi, the octopus fishman. "I knew Nami was a traitor." Karubi snared. Hachi glared, then pointed his finger at Zoro. "You're the guy I gave a ride in my pot. You tricked me." Karubi and Chu groaned at Hachi's stupidity before preparing for battle. At this time Arlong stood up as well. He felt the large fist print and blood on his face. He was too close to losing it. "You fools will pay for what you did," shouted Hachi. "And now to punish you, I'll summon the heavy artillery." Mamu. The water in the pool rippled as a large shape took the surface. It was revealed to be a giant cowfish that Luffy and others encountered earlier. Only this time the creature has a large bump on its forehead and is crying in tears. "Mamu? What happened to you?" Hachi cried, seeing his pet hurt. Luffy and Sanji glanced at the beast. It was shrunken with fear when Mamu acknowledged them. After a pause, the creature made its way back into the water. "Where are you going, Mamu?" asked Arlong. "If you want to leave. Fine." Something about that sentence triggered Mamu's inner beast. It turned back to face the enemy pirates. He sent his head crashing down. Bonnie met the beast halfway and planted her arms on its forehead. Working her powers, she turned the sea monster into a small fry-sized fish. "Impressive feat, Bonnie-chan," swooned Sanji. Mamu fell into the ocean, then swam away crying. Bonnie then turned to Sanji, giving him a thumbs up. "It was nothing, cook boy." Arlong had enough of this foolishness. "Enough of this." Hachi, Chu, Karubi killed them. Hachi was the first to act. The octopus suddenly wielded 6 swords in all arms. "Zoro, you'll pay for making a fool out of me," declared Hachi. "I'm sure you don't even need my help for that one," Zoro responded, wielding his Wado Kuina. "Are you ready for this, Kuina? No funny business this time, right?" "Of course, Zoro, we will work together as one." "But what is it now?" "You are too used to using the 3-sword style. Without the other 2 you're out of your element. Maybe I should take charge of this one." Zoro smirked as he placed the sword in his mouth. "No deal, you had your chance with Mihik, so now it's my turn." Usopp and Makino looked at Zoro oddly, for it looked like he was talking to himself. Kaya had yet to practice therapy, so hopefully Zoro wouldn't need it. "Besides, I already have a backup. Johnny. Yasaku." On cue, Johnny and Yasaku tossed their swords at Zoro. Said swordsman placed Wadi in his mouth, then caught both the swords with ease. He was now prepared for the fight. As it began, the swordsman already had a hard time holding Hachi back. He took the defensive, blocking all of Hachi's strikes. Already he breathed heavily and his vision began to blur. "You're looking pretty weak there, Zoro. You can't even fight at your full potential. Admit defeat," taunted Hachi. Zoro blocked Hachi's attack from his neck. He then deflected and made impact on the fishman's stomach. Hachi however sucked his stomach in avoiding any injuries. Hachi then countered by slicing all his swords down again. To which Zoro had to block. "We need to end this fight quickly. Otherwise you'll fall to your wounds." Right then Zoro found an opening. "Kuina, quick, light him up." On command Kuina self-concisely lit Wado on fire. Zoro then charged in for his attack. Flaming Onigiri. Zoro slipped right past Hachi with his assault. The surprised Hachi shook off the pain and rounded at his opponent again. "You bastard. Now I'm really mad. Birthday surprise." Hachi charged forward, his swords in a pot-like form. Zoro waited for his enemy to get closer. He began to spin his body at crazy speeds as Wado lighted up with a purple aura. Dragon Twister Hummingbird. Hachi didn't see the attack coming until he was launched into the air by an air-slicing tornado and a body-burning aura bird. His swords broke apart, heavy slashed wounds around his torso. Hachi landed with a crash. Beaten by humans with only 3 swords. Hachi muttered before he passed out. Zoro meanwhile sheathed his swords while breathing heavily. Heartbeats, I'm hearing heartbeats everywhere. Nami was at her old house patching herself up. Once she was done, she would head for Arlong Park herself and finally stand up to Arlong. She looked at the picture of her, Najiko, and Bellamere, then headed out the door. Unsuspectingly Nami reversed her way back in as Hancock walked inside. The latter closed the door behind them. Nami took the chance to grab a knife and stab Hancock. The latter however predicted that move and grabbed Nami's arm before she could do so. "Let me go." Nami struggled to get loose. Surprisingly, Hancock did as she was told. Nami got a better look at the woman, her eyes widened when she saw the tears falling from Hancock's eyes. The older woman looked like her just a while ago. "Why are you crying?" This happened to be the first time Nami showed concern for Hancock, but in a way it didn't sound weird or off-putting. "I'm sorry, Nami," cried Hancock. The woman notably looked like a wreck. "I didn't know the pain you've been through all because of my selfish reasons, you've been hurting more and more." Nami couldn't believe she had Hancock apologizing to her. Not only that but hugging her as well. No, it wouldn't be accepted. "Back off." Nami pushed Hancock on the door. "Don't try to act like my friend now. Talking like you care about me, you're probably only doing it for Luffy. He deserves better than you." Hancock wanted to say something, but Nami kept going. "You're talking like you know me, but you don't. You talk like you know my pain, but you don't. How can someone like you?" Nami gasped as Hancock ripped off her shirt. Said woman had her back turned so Nami could get a good look at her mark. "I don't understand." "This is my mark." Hancock slowly responded. "Like you, I've once been a slave. Even still this mark still haunts me because I never get rid of it. I know what it's like to be a slave. I know what it's like to never have your freedom. I know what it's like to protect everyone you care about while secretly hoping that someone will come and protect you. Nami, I understand your pain." "Hancock, I don't know what to say." "You shouldn't have to say anything. It's me who should be apologizing. I would never treat someone like you or me in such a way. If you don't forgive me, I understand. It'll take some time." Hancock jumped when Nami placed her hand on her mark. "But we'll get through it. Just don't try and kill me, okay?" "Right." Hancock nodded. "Good. Now we have some friends to save." Karubi cracked his knuckles when he was facing Sanji, Bonnie, and Summer. Sanji insisted that he fought the manta ray, he didn't want to see either of the ladies hurt in battle. "You think you stand a chance, runt?" Karubi laughed at the smaller man. "You wanna know the difference in strength? If I'm in land or water my power is 10 times stronger than yours. I'm a master at fishman karate, your chances at winning are 0. Just as Karubi got into stance, he was decked with a kick to the face, something too fast to see coming. Karubi was knocked back, but he still kept his stance with his legs planted on the ground. "Damn." Karubi cursed. They both then charged forward until both sides clashed. They both ended up attacking and defending respectively. Sanji didn't take it as a bother, the fish man was certainly stronger than any of the cooks at the restaurant. Zeph however gave him kicks that were 10 times as hard, so this wasn't a bother. Sanji had the advantage of speed, so things shouldn't be too difficult. Karubi found the opening by punching Sanji in the face. Afterwards Karubi unleashed a flurry of attacks on Sanji until the latter blasted towards the wall. The manta ray fish man didn't expect for him to recover so quickly. Sanji simply stood there. Karubi was confused at first, but took the chance and charged at Sanji. When Karubi threw his fist forward, Sanji disappeared at the last moment, shocking the fish man. Without warning, cram. A foot blasted him in the air. As he glided in the air, Sanji appeared behind his back holding 2 fingers on his back. Get ready fish man, you're about to get a taste of my barrage attack. Sanji warned before proceeding. San. Cram. Jai. Cram. Duque. Sanji barrage attack. Ba cram. Ba cram. Ba cram. Ba cram. Garubi fell to the ground beaten with bruises. Sanji landed on 2 feet shortly afterwards. Crappy fish man. Don't you know cooks cook fish? What devil fruit did he eat? The hot fruit. Zoro grunted as he looked at Wado Kuina. Shut up Kuina. Hancock and Nami arrived just after Sanji's victory. The cook must have felt their presence, he turned around swooning to both the beautiful women. Sanji even complimented how good Nami looked wearing Luffy's hat. Something Hancock failed to notice until now. Why didn't Luffy give me his hat? She mentally pouted in jealousy. Hancock now wore Luffy's hat. The said captain came over, he looked slightly more masculine and anemic. Hancock-chan, you looked good in my hat. Super pretty. Luffy thumbs her up. Why thank you Luffy. I don't think it's much of an improvement. Hancock blushed. Don't be silly. You're top notch. Luffy. Hancock. Luffy. Hancock. Luffy. Hancock. Luffy. Hancock. Said woman opened her eyes and snapped back into reality. Nami had apparently been calling her name. Yes, Nami-san. You should wipe the drool off your face. Nami advised. Usopp shook with fear as Chu the blowfish, a fishman approached him. As Chu came closer and closer, Usopp could feel his stomach sink. Until finally he couldn't take it, he ran off, away from Chu, and past a worried Nami. The tangerine's face had stuck to him as he ran, but he tried to shake it off. Arlong laughed as he ran away. Tears fell from Usopp's eyes, he looked back at the fishman Chu standing at the gate. He smirked at the coward of a sniper. I'm not going to follow you. You'll just be a waste of my time, trash. Chu turned around and walked back into Arlong Park. When he wasn't paying attention, Chu was hit with pellets in the back of the head. It hurt like hell, so he turned to the perpetrator, surprised to see it was Usopp. You thought I was running away? Don't be stupid, I was just baiting you. But apparently you're smart enough to not fall for it. Usopp told him, but Chu, Kaya and Makino could see his nose getting longer. Makino decided on scolding Usopp about his lies later. After they weren't in the middle of a battle. Usopp's eyes snapped to life as he launched some more pellets. Chu grunted as he blocked the pellets, each exploding on contact, but none affected him. Usopp prepared for another launch, but didn't expect Chu to punch him in the gut. Crap. Usopp muttered as he fell on his knees coughing blood. What did I tell you? Trash, just like I said. Chu lifted his leg about to kick the sniper. Usopp quickly lifted himself up, smoke bomb. He shouted, throwing down some smoke pellets. A fog of smoke clouded the area as Usopp made his escape. He could hear Chu coughing as he backed out of the smoke cloud. Just after the smoke cleared, Chu picked up the so-called blood. That liar. It was only ketchup. Chu looked around his area from Arlong to the citizens, but of all things he couldn't find Usopp. Where are you? Up here. Chu looked up to see Usopp on top of Arlong's balcony. Take this on for size. Usopp stretched his hammer on his slingshot. Chu flinched as Usopp fired the projectile. The hammer was heard zooming through the air, even so Chu caught the object like it was nothing. My turn. Chu tossed the hammer away, then dived his mouth into the water. Nami caught on to what Chu was about to do. Usopp, watch out. He's about to use his most dangerous attack. Usopp was suddenly struck with water bullets before he could take in the warning. Each and every one hurt more than the actual thing. The sniper fell from the balcony then onto the ground with a thump. Damn it. Why am I so useless? Was all that training with Zoro really for nothing? The sniper looked at Zoro observing the fight, his look was unreadable. He then turned towards Nami, then Kaya, then Sanji. Each looked at him in the way he didn't like. A burden that needed help. I can't lose. Losing is not an option. He encouraged himself as he stood to his feet. Chu ran towards him very shortly. I am the great Captain Usopp. Just as Chu punched him in the face, Usopp launched some purple pellets on the fish man. He of course was sent flying into the wall from the punch. He was in the biggest pain he had been in his life, but he was so close to winning that he wouldn't give up now. Usopp lifted his lower body up, then ran on all fours as Chu chased him. He was surprisingly fast for someone who was bleeding a lot. Eventually Chu stopped the chance and headed back for the water. Usopp still kept running and didn't stop. It's over, sniper. Chu prepared to fire. Usopp ran right behind the unsuspecting Arlong on his throne. Chu's eyes widened as he fired his water bullets. Soon all eyes widened with shock as the water bullets made direct contact with Arlong. The latter was heard growling afterwards, which was Usopp's chance to move away. An angry Chu glared at Usopp. Look what you made me do. You're dead meat now. I wouldn't count on it. Usopp laughed, he noticed that Chu was finding it more difficult to breathe. On it Wathragoodby. Suddenly Chu fell to the ground and found it difficult to breathe. What did you do to me? Remember those purple pellets from before? Those were poison pellets from Maya's office. Usopp explained to the fish man. It took some time before they could fully activate around your body. So of course I had to buy some time. Chu glared even harder than before. You didn't think I would come here unprepared, did you? In seconds more Chu collapsed on the ground. And that's what happens when you mess with the great Usopp. Said person suddenly dove in with a hug towards Kaya. He laughed, but was also in a great deal of pain at the same time. Usopp, don't ever scare me like that. Look at yourself, you're injured. Kaya brought some bandages from her pouch, then began the treatment for Usopp. Do you have any idea what would happen if I lost you? What? Asked Usopp. I would die from sickness. Kaya told him. As she reached his long nose they both shared a friendly smile. Only for it to be interrupted from the giant shark shadow above them. Get ready to die, humans. Arlong growled. Ah. Luffy appeared, his fist in Arlong's gut. The shark-fish man was sent gliding across the park. Did you forget? Your fight is with me. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Invader Cole for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.